Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to our Wednesday night edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name's Keaton Weiss, here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
This is our non-coverage of the fourth Republican presidential debate. There's a debate on tonight. I didn't even know that. Rumble just sent out an alert. Yeah, that's going on right now.
I saw articles that it was happening, and I had a whisper of an echo of a thought. Hey, asking if he wants to cover it, but it never got out of the well.
Well, good, because that would have been a waste of a question.
Yeah, exactly. We only get so many questions in this lifetime.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. It would have been a profound waste of a question. Folks, thank you very much for being here tonight. We have a lot to cover. We have a very special guest here to talk with us for the next hour or so, and then we are doing segments later on. But right now, we want to waste no time introducing our guest. You all know who she is. She's the host of the Katie Halper Show and the co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast. She also has a new documentary film that she made out called Commie Camp. We are now a joke. Three self-hating Jews walk into a bar. How about that setup?
Should we wait like 2 minutes? Because we're about to get Iron Maiden.
That's all right. Katie Halper. Katie, what's going on?
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Doing
How
great.
You doing, Katie?
Good,
all right,
thanks.
so we have a tradition here. We just did 666 in the chat.
Good turnout.
Yeah, not too bad. When we hit 666 in the chat, that's when we hit that cue, and we've been hitting it sooner lately, thankfully. We thank everybody for being here, and thank you for being here. It's great to meet you finally.
You too.
It's great to talk to you rather than about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we want to start out by just a little...
You've made it.
Yeah.
You've arrived.
Little cheers, right?
Hey,
little
Katie, what are you drinking there?
solidarity, as we say. Yeah, there we go.
Keaton, that low-rent punk, couldn't stir up a freaking martini glass.
I love a martini. It's a healthy drink, low carb.
Yeah.
I did stir up a martini. Russell's drinking
It was
martini.
the only thing Jack LaLanne would drink.
Is that true?
He lived on martinis
Really? Is
and
that true?
salads. No, okay.
I am so okay for how sarcastic I am. I'm so gullible. It's a very weird, like the relationship between my gullibility and sarcasm is weird.
Well, it's tough with Russell because he pulls a lot of references that you don't necessarily know, right? Like he'll pull out a lot of obscure facts and figures and events. And you don't know whether he's laughing at them, whether he's, whether he means it as a laugh or whether he's actually invoking something that actually happened or being serious. So it's a little tough to tell with him for that reason. Yeah, I have the same problem.
Yeah. I mean, with Jack LaLanne, that's possible because he was a nut. Like he would brag about how he hadn't had a dessert since 1927.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there are all sorts of healthy desserts you can have now.
Well, Russell is drinking a prop martini, but I'm actually drinking a real one. I actually made myself a real one, but I couldn't track down a real glass. So I'm using just a rocks glass, like a Johnny Walker Scotch glass. I went to the dollar store to try and pick up a martini glass because I don't really drink them. I don't really love dry vermouth, but I got this. I got the Dirty Olive Martini Mix, and then I have some gin that I poured in it. And I'm actually very surprised at how good this tastes because the gin I have is absolutely god awful. Jimmy Dore, when I met him for dinner, was very kind. He got me a bottle of Bombay Sapphire gin, which is a nice gin. But I drank all that already. And so I had to go to my backup gin, which I've had for years. Absolute garbage swill, like the thing they keep under the bar next to the all-purpose, sanitizer when you get like a house gin and tonic. It's actually not even like the Crystal Palace. You know what it is? It's the New Amsterdam gin. You guys are New Yorkers. I'm sure you saw that. They did a big ad campaign all over the subways, 6 or 7 years ago. This new gin, I guess it's distilled in New York. But, man, it is terrible. But luckily, this olive mix kind of masks it. It's actually kind of nice. I like it.
Well, this is actually, I forgot to mention, not that anyone would be interested in, but I like a very, very, very dirty vodka martini. That's my drink.
Yeah, vodka I couldn't do. I would throw up halfway through the show if I did vodka
martinis.
Yeah, that's my go-to, yeah.
There used to be a place. Do you remember this place? There was a place in the East Village that did all martinis. They had like dozens of different varieties of martinis you could order. Do you remember this place? It's a while ago. No, I'm asking Katie. I know you.
On all martini joint?
It was like, it was in the East Village. It was like that. They just had this. That was their thing. Like some places have over 100 varieties of beer.
Oh wow! No, I don't think I knew it. But I haven't been into martinis for that long. But I wonder if it's still around. I want to find out.
Oh no, that's got to be long gone.
Long gone. Yeah. Someone said they like coquitos, which are great. But that's a very intense, sugary drink.
Yes.
So I'm trying to keep this is my healthy drink.
Okay.
A friend of mine used to make coquitos around the holidays and sell them on Facebook, which I don't know if that's legal. I don't know if you're allowed to sell boozy drinks because I know you can sell like the mixer, like you could sell a kit that you would add the booze to once you buy it.
Right.
But I think he sold them just as is. But yeah, no, they are very good, especially around the holidays.
Someone wrote real martinis don't have vermouth. Good bartenders don't even. Why did I just sound like I was from Chicago?
I thought a martini is gin or vodka and vermouth. So what's the mixer in a martini
anymore? It's a leftover from Prohibition when you had to kill the taste of shit bathtub gin. Interesting. Yep. Well, I'm happy with an extremely olivey. I don't even need the vermouth myself. I'm happy with vodka and a lot of olive brine.
Olive brine. Okay, so there's no vermouth. It's just the brine. Because there's no vermouth in this because I don't have dry vermouth.
My professional live-in martini maker made it for me. Someone in the comments once was like, "Oh, Katie has whatever." We don't have to get into it. We're here to talk about politics, not the haters.
That's where you're wrong, Katie. We're talking haters, Prohibition era drink recipes. Oh. All right, so
martini. And then you get some healthy fats from the olives. No, I'm not. By the way,
I don't even like olives.
Really?
No, I don't.
They're so good. At the end, it would make sense if I were like, and that's why you should buy Katie's martini mix. But I don't even have a product to sell. I just like martinis that much.
You know what? That's not a bad angle. You ever see this guy? And he's gonna punch me for saying this if I ever meet him. There's this guy. He has a show, The Quartering, that's like doesn't make any sense because he's one of the most boring commentators, but he has huge view counts. It's just one of those channels. This is what Disney did to offend you today. It's just one of those. But his thing is he sells coffee. Like he uses that show to sell his coffee.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, and I think he does very well. Like basically he'll do his setup. Oh, Disney did this woke atrocity and coffee brand coffee is having a sale today.
Right. Yeah, I could totally do that. I should be a war profiteer. Yeah.
They're always buying. They're always buying those. All right. So we both. All right. So this, I'll be interested to hear how your thoughts on this. So we both grew up Jewish in New York City, right?
Were you bar mitzvahed?
I was bar mitzvahed, but they took pity on my mother. They kicked me out of Hebrew school when I was 9. They only bar mitzvahed me because my mother begged them.
Wow.
So they gave me a tape. So I just listened to it enough that I could repeat it. I had no idea what I was saying.
Right. Yeah.
And they just pushed me through the system.
I wasn't bat mitzvahed or anything. I was secular all the way.
I was too. I wasn't bar mitzvahed either.
Yeah.
Freaking heathens. I'm like the only real Jew.
A safe space.
I've been to a couple bar mitzvahs, and that was torturous enough. I couldn't imagine having to learn it and actually do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did it. I didn't know what I was saying. It was fine. I got the money.
I got the money.
That was my
way
motive.
to shatter the stereotype. Yeah.
That was.
Well, I'll actually do you one better. My kids.
Oh, come on. What about Catholics with communion? They don't do that for the envelope.
Baptism. Okay, so my kids, my wife is actually a quarter Jewish, and I guess half Catholic. Like her father's side of the family is very Catholic, and then her mother's
she's
side
a cashew. That's called a cashew.
Jew. A cashew. There you go. Perfect. Beautiful. That makes sense. Yes, she is. And my mother was Catholic. My father is Jewish, and we had. I didn't know that. I
thought she was a full blood.
What's that?
I thought she was a full blood.
No.
I didn't know.
No, but it was important to my father-in-law that we get the kids baptized, and I'm, whatever. I wasn't really into it. I said, I don't know if I want to get them baptized. She's like, yeah, it's really important to my dad that we do it. I said, I don't want to offend your dad, but I don't know how I feel about it. She's like, people give us money. I'm like, oh, well, done. That's all you had to say. I mean, you should have just led with that.
I would do that. I feel like it's funny when people really resist that, because if you're so dismissive and anti-religion, then it's like, it's magic. It's not real. Why do you care? Let the person be happy with the baptism. Also,
I saw it that way as soon as she mentioned the money.
The money, right? Yeah. But it's also like, what do you have to lose? It's nice, it's just a little water. You're not drowning them or anything.
Yeah, no, it's easy. It was an easy
gig
for them.
Yeah.
No, not anymore. It used to be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The first time I had a girlfriend where I was old enough for marriage to be an issue.
An issue. I like the way you make it sound like a problem.
It usually is.
Where the threat of marriage was
the threat of marriage that she was going to want to marry me
heavy over the relationship, and she was not Jewish, and she brought up having a Christmas tree, and I was very surprised because I grew up basically with Italians, and when I thought about having a Christmas tree in my house, like in my living room, I did not like the idea, and I was surprised that I didn't like the idea. Or that I wasn't completely indifferent.
Not have Christmas trees?
Of course they did, but it wasn't in my house.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
They didn't put it in my house.
I'm a Christmas tree Jew. We had Christmas trees.
You have Christmas trees?
Yeah.
She asked me, why does it bother you? And I thought about it, and I said, I don't know. Once you get the Christmas tree, everybody's drinking and fighting.
Oh, yeah. That's what, yeah.
Because that was what I witnessed at my friend's houses.
No fighting with menorah.
Jews fight passive-aggressive fighting.
Right.
They don't. No knocking over tables and cousins not talking for 10 years because somebody tried to choke someone out in the backyard.
Oh, wow.
Out of that.
Yeah.
That kind of thing literally happened to my neighborhood.
Wow. Where did you grow
up? Flushing.
Flushing. Oh, that's where my dad's from.
Is he from Flushing?
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, so that brings me to my question. All right. So the side of like the Jewish community that I grew up on, these were like the shtetl strivers, they did stuff, my grandfather manufactured pocketbooks, things like that, going back to that old Lower East Side peddling thing.
The Schmata
The Schmatas, and, then they went and got shops, and, so it was a pretty high-end shop. Actually, my grandfather's pocketbooks are a collector's item. If you are a collector of vintage purses, Dobby's was the brand. I'm not kidding. Just like the elf in Harry Potter. If you look that up, you can find ads for Dobby's. You can find select purses.
Oh wow, nice.
That's my great grandfather Menachem. He actually invented hip hop.
Yeah, klezmer hip hop pioneer Menachem Dobby.
Yeah.
All right, so let me get to this actual question. All right, so I had no idea that there was this like society of Jewish communist intellectuals. I had no awareness of that. When I, as a teenager, started to talk communism, my grandfather was horrified. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, "You sound just like them. In the 30s, they had the beards and the hats. You sound just like they did."
Wow.
So it was not until I started watching Woody Allen movies that I became aware of this. So
of that stereotype / type. It's not even
okay,
stereotype.
and I have a quote here. He says to Carol Kane and Annie Hall, he's trying to hit on her very badly. You like New York Jewish left-wing liberal intellectual, Central Park West, Brandeis University, the socialist summer camps.
Summer camp, strike-oriented family.
Yeah,
or something.
strike
Yeah.
with the Ben Shahn drawings.
Yeah.
I had never heard of such a thing. Like, to me, that was the opposite of what Jews were.
Right.
Like, Jews to me were these very conservative, very capitalist kind of oriented people. Like, I had no idea really that there was this tradition of Jews who were into that.
Yeah,
so
I'm guessing that I was Riverside Drive instead of Central Park West, and then Wesleyan, which doesn't totally fit, but it's not. Yeah, but definitely socialist summer camp.
Which you made a documentary about.
I did, yeah. Which it's funny because it's actually like it's not related to. I mean, it is related in a weird way to what's happening in Gaza right now, because the face that so many. Like the face that AIPAC and the ADL likes to present of Jews is one tradition, but there really is this other tradition that Jewish Voice for Peace, for instance, is highlighting, right? I mean, I've been kind of blown away to see the Jewish organizations that are organizing all these protests against what's happening in Gaza, because that used to be you know, people I knew, they got that, like how there was this Jewish tradition of doing that, but it's really become much bigger. I think it's a question of young people just not buying the Zionist narratives that older people were so indoctrinated with. So you see Jewish Voice for Peace, if not now, JFREJ, which is Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. It's just smaller organizations. It's based in New York City, but this is the other Jewish kind of tradition. And it's not funded and organized the way that AIPAC and the ADL are, so it's not as visible, but it finally is making it is now rearing its head. Instead of ugly head, it's beautiful head, I would say. But the other thing is that a lot of the Jews who come from a more internationalist, humanistic, communist background, they're not obsessed with being Jews precisely because they're internationalists. So they don't emphasize or talk about the fact that they're Jewish. But with the travesty and, you know, outrageous assault on Gaza, it actually becomes politically useful to self-identify as Jewish, because you have to push back on the total lie that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic. And that's something I've struggled with, because of course I'm not trying to say that if you're not Jewish, you don't have the right to opine on this. You do. But we also have to have kind of all hands on board, all hands on deck. And if that means trying to reach out to people who really are afraid that anyone who is anti-Israel is anti-Semitic, then we have to do that too. Like, we have to show them that there are Jews who are critical of Israel, that there are Jews who range from post-Zionist to non-Zionist to actually anti-Zionist.
Well, this is something we've talked about a lot here, that when you equate Zionism with Judaism, you don't stamp out anti-Semitism, you create it.
Yes,
because
totally.
It's such a loathsome ideology when people look at what's being done there.
Yes.
That if they think that's Judaism,
right.
they're going to hate Jews. That's why they scrawl from the river to the sea on a synagogue, because they think that's the same thing.
Exactly. And the irony is that the people who conflate being a Jew with being a Zionist are raving anti-Semites who use the term Jew and Zionist interchangeably, the Zionist this, the Zionist that, and Israel and the ADL and AIPAC. And I actually used to resist using the word Zionist because it felt so charged, and I so associated it with anti-Semites using it. I always felt weird talking about it, but now it's just like we no longer have that. I mean, I still would like, honestly, a lot of people will probably call me a sellout on this. I still think we need a term for Zionists who believe in the idea of a Jewish state, which is problematic. But I still think there's a difference for people who think, let's have a state where Jews are safe that doesn't require ethnic cleansing, versus let's have a state that requires ethnic cleansing where Jews have certain rights and other people don't. There's nothing wrong with the idea of a safe space for all refugees or all persecuted people. And I do think that that's a difference. Like, there's a difference between being a kind of aspirational Zionist or liking the idea, but not liking the way it was executed, and being a Zionist as in a defender of Israel today.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference there for sure. The only problem is, Jews being the nomads that we are, wherever this state were to be settled, we would have to kick the people out who were there before, right? Unless we're going to create a Jewish state in the South Pole or something. I mean, I think that, Germany did the crime. They were split up after World War II.
Yeah.
Seems likely. Seems reasonable to me. If we needed a Jewish state, which I'm not sold on the idea that we do, but that would have been where that's seems like a good place. Weather's a lot nicer too.
Yeah.
Much nicer. Yeah.
The Rhine is lovely this time.
Germany just passed a law in some districts saying that you have to declare that Israel has a right to exist to become like a naturalized citizen. I had Youssef Munayr on my show who tweeted about this when they were considering it. The Bundestag was considering it, and apparently it has passed, at least on some regional level, right? And what Youssef pointed out was that that's not even a requirement for Israel. And Germany doesn't even require you to say it about Germany. And so it is so infuriating watching Germany make Palestinians pay for their own crimes against humanity. They're the ones who wiped out millions of Jews, 6 million Jews. The Palestinians had nothing to do with that. And we're supposed to be moved by Germany. They have no skin in the game. What are they sacrificing? Self-flagellating a little bit, but mostly they're actually punishing Palestinians so they don't have to look at what they're still doing.
Yeah, no, they get to virtue signal while a bunch of brown people in the Middle East have to pay for their crimes. I literally put it almost the exact word for word same way. This incarnation of Zionism is just so outrageously racist as to suggest that the Palestinian people be on the hook for the crimes of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, that's racist there.
Unbelievable.
And that's just unbelievably racist from jump.
And the other irony is that it's anti-Semitic. It doesn't just create anti-Semitism, which I agree that it does, because Israel is committing heinous crimes. And now more than ever with social media, it's on blast for everyone to see. And when they say that they're acting in the name of Jews, that doesn't make me feel safe. The irony is I have older people telling me that by criticizing Israel, I'm making Jews not safe because without Israel, Jews wouldn't be safe. First of all, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence. No one can tell me that because of Israel, I'm safer here. In fact, we all know that it's less safe to live in Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu knows that too, because he tries to talk out of both sides of his mouth. I remember at the same time that he was saying Jews need to come to Israel because there was some attack in France, I think. At the same time, he was saying that that Iran was an existential threat towards Israel. It's like, which is it? Are you guys under threat? In which case, don't tell Jews to come to move in, or are you not? But not only does it create anti-Semitism, but it also perpetuates the anti-Semitic trope. And all these people love calling out any trope, but the anti-Semitic trope of dual loyalty, that Jews are all this monolith and that we're all loyal to Israel. And we can't be trusted because at the end of the day, we really care more about Israel than whatever country that we're in. I mean, it's so offensive. And again, the irony is the people who like to conflate those two things are raging anti-Semites, David Duke types, and then Jonathan Greenblatt at the Anti-Defamation League, AIPAC, and the State of Israel.
Yeah, you mentioned the ultimate irony. I mean, I put it this way before, but this I think really distills the irony, captures the irony. I say the Zionists use Jews as human shields. We are their human shields. They put us at risk to defend themselves, to protect themselves from criticism. And that's exactly it.
And what's fascinating, too, is that a lot of Zionists, the early Zionists, the non-Jewish, well, we see this, everyone knows this, right? Like Mike Johnson, is that the name of the Speaker of the House? He was standing behind these annoying crybabies today who, I don't believe it for a fucking second, by the way. The guy who's like, they told me, you're a dirty little Jew. I mean, okay, maybe it's true. And if it is, that's not cool. That's not nice. But that also doesn't make me not want to talk about what's happening to the people of Gaza. Like I would have more empathy for people saying that if I knew that they gave a shit about people being killed.
Well, you know,
yeah, there's a whole lot
traveled,
of misrepresentation there too. Sorry, I just want to make this quick point because we
Go
talked
ahead.
about Juliana Margulies, and we did a whole video on her.
Yeah.
And she said something about some students at Columbia having an organizing meeting and put up a sign, "No Jews allowed." Turns out that is not what the sign was.
No, it
later
was
came out
Zionist.
it was
Right.
no Zionists
Right,
allowed.
No
exactly.
Zionists
Right.
allowed.
You're the
Well,
one
to her, that's the
conflating
same
them.
thing.
You're the one
Yes.
conflating them. Stop
Right, but she's the
projecting.
one doing that, right?
I know
Exactly. That's on her.
Yeah. You got some haters in the chat. Someone writes, all right, I'll respond to your hater chat if you drop some shekels.
They don't drop the shekels, the haters?
Katie still harbors
now
some Jewish
who's hitting the
supremacist
stereotype,
trope,
Katie?
NGL. What does that mean? What are my Jewish supremacist tropes? I want to know what that is. That I think I'm smarter than everyone else? Maybe, but not because I'm Jewish.
Not because I'm Jewish.
Just kidding. I don't think that. I'm curious what that person means.
You know, I've traveled around the country a lot, and I think because I grew up with Italians, I very often present in a way that people don't associate with Jews. They think that I'm Italian, or they think that I'm Irish a lot of times.
Italians are like butch Jews, and Jews are intellectual Italians.
So it's an easy transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your hands a lot. I call this Jew-sticulating when Jews do it, though. Jew-sticulating, yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, the Italians, it's like sharper gestures. It's
That's
more,
true.
Right.
You know, it's more in the shoulders, that kind of thing.
Right.
But
more above shoulder. That's an interesting observation. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's masculine posturing, really. But you know, I always say Jews can do something a lot of other groups can't. You can go undercover. So
you mean a lot of like persecuted groups?
A lot of persecuted groups, a lot of marginalized groups.
Yeah.
You know, Jews, it's like the racial part is ambiguous, so it's hard to, well, is it a race? Whatever. But Jews can go undercover.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, sure. There's a lot of, I've sat in and listened to people talk, assuming I'm not Jewish, a lot of anti-Semitic stuff in my journeys. I'm not going to say that's not out there. I will say this, the anti-Semitic beliefs that people had that I would hear in the heartland, stuff like that, was very much oriented around the Zog, you know, the Zionist occupational government, the idea that there's this cabal of Jews that controls everything. So let me ask you something. When this war broke out and all of these Jewish organizations demanded that content creators be removed from online platforms, that actors be fired from movies and TV shows, that people get pulled off TikTok, that AIPAC very blatantly starts offering millions of dollars to politicians to run against people who are critical of them, in even the mildest ways, really, just the most basic human demands that they're making. Do you think that plays to that stereotype, or do you think it helps to dismantle it?
I mean, obviously plays to that stereotype. And that's, I think I tweeted something like this when, shout out to Susan Sarandon, when she got dropped by her agency. Right. Like, that's great to show the anti-Semites that, you know, if you, way to perpetuate the stereotype of Jews running Hollywood, all Jews being Zionists. I mean,
of course,
it's disgusting. And what's interesting is that a lot of the, so what I was going to say before, and I got off track because I did have a martini, as people are aware of. But what's interesting is that today, you know, there are some Jewish students complaining about alleged anti-Semitism, and behind them is standing Mike Johnson, right? Is that his name? The new speaker of the House?
The new speaker.
It's Mike Johnson.
Yeah. Mike Johnson, who's an evangelical, and he's nodding his head and shaking his head and commiserating. Like, this is a guy who wants Jews, meaning you, Jewish person speaking in front of him. He wants us to go to Israel so we can trigger the end times. And a lucky few of us will be able, I think 400 of us are going to be privileged enough to be able to accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. And all the other Jews are going to burn in eternal damnation. This is your ally.
Yeah, we're just bait, basically.
Yeah, we're bait.
Yeah,
we're
Jesus
Armageddon bait.
Yeah.
We're Jesus bait. Yeah. But what's interesting is that people know about that kind of Christian Zionism, but there was Christian Zionism before the founding of Israel. A lot of people wanted Jews to go back, and there was anti-Semitic Zionism. A lot of the Zionists who wanted Jews to go to Israel because they just didn't want them in their countries. And I feel like that is something, if Jews realize that, I think maybe that would change the way that they saw Israel. Because if they realized that Israel really was, I know it can sound a little pedantic and like annoying and academic, but it really was a settler colonial project. And if they saw that, and it wasn't a place to save Jews per se, and in fact, for Zionists, you need anti-Semitism, because without anti-Semitism, you don't have the justification for Zionism. And for Zionists, they think that anti-Semitism is not something that you can ever get rid of. So you kind of have to make your peace with it. And if you read some of the statements from the early Zionists, Jewish Zionists, not just the anti-Semitic Goyish Zionists, and I had Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on my show, and he and I disagree a little bit about the definition of a Jew, because I'm not religious, but I consider myself Jewish. And for him, it really is whether or not you're. It's not even whether. I think for him, I'm a Jew in bad standing. Not that he says it in that judgmental way, but like I'm commanded.
That's like the Chabad. That's like the Chabad guys.
I guess, yeah. I don't
always want you to pray with them.
Yeah. So I'm supposed to be religious, but I'm Jewish. I'm just kind of like a Jew, not on my best behavior. And to me, you can be a Jew and be godless. But what he was saying was, he was bringing up how so many of the early Zionists had terrible things to say about Jews. They were, the irony is that, anti-Zionist or non-Zionist Jews or Israel critics who are Jewish are often called self-loathing, but there's so much self-loathing in the early Zionists. They did not want to be associated with diaspora Jewry. They didn't want to be associated with Yiddish. They had to create this new modern Hebrew that nobody spoke. They wanted to be bronzed and working the land. They have such a weird relationship with the Holocaust, where they use it constantly to justify their ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, but they're also ashamed of it. It's a very pathological thing. And that's not very PC to say, but it is pathological. I'm fine saying that. A lot of nations are pathological, and Israel has its own pathology. And it was, it's sad in many ways, because they were played by European colonial powers.
Well, I've long said that Israel was an apartheid state, but to my shame, I didn't really dig too deeply into it. That part was just kind of obvious to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a group of people that have different rights than the other people,
right,
it's an apartheid state. Like, I didn't really need to dig in to figure that out. But now, really digging into this, you've probably seen it. I've recently watched Tantora.
I actually have to. I just interviewed on Useful Idiots. We spoke to Ilan Pape, whose advisee wrote the thesis that then led to that film being made. So I haven't, because my friend who makes me martinis, because I'm not going to divulge too much about my personal life or whether I'm single. My martini maker, my in-house martini maker, and I have to like nudge him to. I'm like, can we watch this? He's like, he's like me. He's the same politics, and it's actually very nice, because I think it would be hard to be with someone who does not have the same politics on this. But I have that on the list of things that we have to watch, because you guys know I got fired from The Hill because we are going to get into that.
We have some footage from that.
Yeah.
But watching that, what really struck me when they talked about this,
and
horrible.
Do people watching probably don't know what it is, right?
I've mentioned it on the show, but to mention it again, it's available for free actually online. You can find it if you look up.
Way to shatter the stereotype.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's being offered like not clandestinely, like as an educational film. Like, I don't think it's not.
I just thought it was on Amazon, but if there's another way, then I would love to watch it.
I mean, when I Googled it, it came right up.
Oh, great. Okay.
And it didn't look like a pirate site. It looked like an educational site. But it's about what they did. It's kind of in miniature what happened during the Nakba through the lens of what they did to the people in this one town. And, they're telling these stories of them, executing unarmed prisoners and penning people up.
And raping.
Yes. And yes. And what really struck me was, this was these very traumatized people taking it out on these people. And from that day to this, and if you talk to Rabbi Shapiro, I'm sure he got into this, they'll all tell you we got along fine with the Arabs and the Muslims until the Zionists came. They had to project onto this population that they wanted to brutalize the qualities of the Nazis in order to justify the atrocities
they were
that serve their own
against
interests.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, that's the core pathology that I
Right.
have found in the course of researching this.
Yeah, we had, so Aaron Mate and I spoke to, did I already admit that we spoke to Elon Pape? That was supposed to be a surprise, but you guys got it early.
Oh, that episode's not out.
Scoop.
Yeah, we don't like to
Scoop.
say who it was, but it is Elon Pape. And last week we spoke to Gideon Levy, and he said, he's a journalist at Haaretz who's very critical. And he said that, you know, there are three things that let Israelis live with the occupation. One is the belief that they're the chosen people. The other is that they're the only victims. And then the other one is the dehumanization of Palestinians. And that is, as much as people probably are uncomfortable with people diagnosing a pathology, I mean, you can't live subjugating another people without dehumanizing them, or else you'd be in constant agony.
Right. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that also strikes me in all this, you know, we played a clip. We did this on the show, right, with Schumer, talking about he was giving a speech to AIPAC, and he with absolute scorn says, "But they don't believe in the Torah."
Oh yes, this was years ago. Yes,
Yeah, this was like 2018.
It was not an AIPAC. It was at some Orthodox.
It was an AIPAC.
Yeah, but it was an Orthodox.
Can you imagine if an American politician of any other faith said something like that? They don't believe in the Bible, right?
Theocracy.
MSNBC would be all over it.
Yes,
oh
exactly.
My God!
And the irony is that, of course, not that he'd know this, but Islam actually is like believes in the Torah. They just have their own thing. It's like the Old Testament,
people of the book,
the New Testament, and then
right.
the Quran. But he's such an idiot, and that's in that same speech. He actually says that's why we have to strangle Gaza economically.
Does he?
Yeah.
I don't know if we saw that part.
Yeah. It's the same
so we want to plug your movie. We actually have a clip of
great.
of your preview of it.
Yep. So we're going to play a trailer here from your movie Commie Camp. And then I want to ask you a couple of questions kind of specifically about the film. So let's take a look. This is a couple minutes. This is a trailer to Katie's documentary, Commie Camp.
This is Camp Kinderland. I went to Camp Kinderland, and so did my mom and my grandmother. I love Camp Kinderland. But not everyone does. For some people, it's
a politically left-wing Jewish summer camp with communist roots. They walk in there as young skulls full of mush, and the liberal establishments at these places bend and shape their mind.
One of the very, very special things that camp is known for is for its
progressive propaganda agenda.
This is the sun, which, as you can see, is a peace sign.
Stop indoctrinating my children.
Do you think as kids you can make a difference?
If you just stop littering. Going to anti-war demonstrations with your parents. In my school, we saved an orangutan.
Get your kids out of this indoctrination.
We love camp.
Our republic will be lost.
If we wouldn't go there, we would be lost.
In order to save the children and the republic, there's only one thing for me to do. I'm going back to camp.
I know the word for cream cheese. Schmear. This girl wrote a letter under my bed that said somebody has a crush on you.
No more! Garbage, 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 garbage!
We're sort of in love.
Well, today was really fun. I had a really good time. I hope for the other days are going to be a lot funner. That would be amazing.
1, 2, 3, and.
So that camp, I guess, is famous enough to be on Rush Limbaugh's radar and Glenn Beck's radar. I had never heard of that camp. So that's, I guess, this is widely known.
I mean, in certain circles, what happened is that the reason that Rush Limbaugh talked about the camp is because, as that trailer reveals, an Obama Bureau of Labor Statistics person, their kid went to the camp. She sent their kid to the camp.
Obviously didn't stick.
Yeah, I know. If only, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure she was a good Bureau of Labor Statistics person. But it did almost get shut down during the McCarthy era. A lot of Paul Robeson visited the camp. Pete Seeger visited the camp. Howard Zinn would visit the camp. There's some well-known people who, Chesa Boudin went there actually.
Where is the camp?
Where is it, you said?
Yeah.
It's now in the Berkshires.
Okay, because I grew up in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, it used to be on Sylvan Lake.
Okay.
And then it moved a bunch of times, and it almost was shut down then at various times. Lots of different financial emergencies also, but it persevered. And my mom went there, my grandma went there, my uncle went there, I went there. A lot of my best friends went there or worked there, and it still exists.
Okay, cool. So that's part of a whole network of those kinds of summer camps?
Yeah, but that's basically the only one that's around now. There was this other camp called Wochika, which was Workers' Children's Camp. Lots of other camps like that. And then there was, Kinderland and Kinderring split. They were the same camp. And then Kinderland was basically the communist camp, and Kinderring was the socialist camp. And of course, Kinderring is fancier and has a swimming pool, which we don't have. Yeah. But there was a lot of animosity.
So those are the class traders.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So what made you do the film about it? Was it because you saw a lot of those right-wing figures talking about it and so, this is getting a bit of a high profile in media spaces?
Okay, this is kind of funny. So I was obsessed with, I still am. I love the movie Waiting for Guffman. It's one of my favorite movies, which is this movie, Christopher Guest mockumentary.
Yep.
And I remember, and it's about a small town putting on a centennial production. And at first I had this idea that I was I wanted to make a documentary about the camp play at Kinderland, because the camp play was put on by Mitchell Silver, who happens to be the brother of Ron Silver, weirdly enough, the late actor.
And that guy became insanely right-wing. I don't know if he always was, but he was frothing at the mouth, Bush, Iraq war hawk, conservative guy, yeah.
And by Maddie Simon, who is this kind of institution at camp. She went to camp or worked at camp. She actually played piano, I think, with my grandmother. My grandmother was a modern dancer, and I think she accompanied my grandmother. She, like my grandmother, grew up in the Coops, which was this housing cooperative in the Bronx, based off of the Karl Marx apartments in Vienna, which is another housing cooperative. Anyway, so I thought it'd be funny to do a documentary about the camp play. And my mom was like, that's a little ridiculous. Maybe it'd be funny, but why don't you make a documentary about the camp? And I was like, oh yeah, that's actually a much better idea. And so I did that.
Yeah. I mean, and where can people find that film?
So it's about to be released, but you can go to commiecampfilm.com and put your name up so that when we do release it, which is going to be this month, you'll be the first to know, and then you can watch it.
Oh, okay, because there's a buy tab on the thing, so I guess you can pre-order it.
Yeah, but I'm not that much of a capitalist, so it just tells you to put your email there. I won't spam you, but yeah,
to get alerted. All right,
get alerted. Yeah, it's
very cool.
It's going to be released soon. Yeah, and Susan Sarandon blurbed it.
Oh, did she?
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
Gerald Horne blurbed it.
Who's Gerald Horne?
The great historian who wrote 40 books. He's a Black Marxist historian who wrote.
Why have I never heard of him? That sounds
he's
crazy.
Great. Yeah. I'm trying to think who else. I got a lot of blurbs. Michael R. Jackson is going to give it a blurb. Off the top of my head, I can't think of. I have a lot more though that they're on the website, but Susan Sarandon is all you need to know.
Nice.
And Gerald Horne, if you know who Gerald Horne is. He's a very prolific historian.
Very cool.
He's great.
Are you
been on my
releasing
show
it?
A bunch.
Are you releasing it in theaters?
No. If anyone wants to release in theaters, we could do that. Give me a call. I should do that, but yeah.
It's not. It used to have. You know who would have shown
Spencer Ackerman went there. Spencer Ackerman, and he called it a heartwarming film. I feel like I need to tell you more about the. Hold on, commiecampfilm.com. Let's see.
Well, you're the first person I've ever met who's actually gone to one.
Okay, Medea Benjamin.
Oh, she gave you a quote too. Excellent. All right, good.
Josh Olson, who is an Academy Award nominee for Best Screenplay for An Act of Violence. He calls it delightful. Basil Hamden, who is the executive producer of Fahrenheit 11/9, also liked it. I only have a couple up there, but I got a lot more blurbs. I got to update the website. Yeah.
Well, all right. Now I will finally be able to satisfy the curiosity that was first stimulated when I was 15 and saw Annie Hall.
Yeah.
For the first time it said, hang on, there's what? There's Jewish socialist summer camp.
Yeah, there is actually socialist summer camp.
So given that background, you might not have had this problem, but has your position lost you friends or family contacts? Coming from that back, maybe it wouldn't have. Like anybody from my side of the community, I mean, that would be like one notch below putting on a swastika armband and showing up at Passover. Like one step below.
Some people on social media, definitely. Someone was like, you used to be a liberal. Now you're a terrorist sympathizer. And I was like, well, I'm not a liberal. You're right about that.
Right. I want to play this video. This is a partial monologue of yours that you, I guess, wrote and recorded and performed for The Hill. And then they spiked the monologue and fired you before it aired.
Right. But then I made it with Breakthrough TV. Yeah.
Yeah, so you then recorded it and put it on Breakthrough TV, and so everybody should go and watch the full thing over there, but we're going to just play the first 2 minutes of it just to tease this out and then talk about that episode.
Monologue is something that I wrote, delivered, and recorded at The Hill. It was then censored, and I was then canceled and fired. Representative Rashida Tlaib has been condemned by some over comments she made about Israel. Here's CNN's Jake Tapper reporting on what the Michigan Democrat said and the response it prompted.
Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib of Michigan facing criticism today from what several of her Jewish colleagues have deemed anti-Semitic comments. Here's what Tlaib, the first Palestinian-American woman to serve in Congress, said at a virtual event yesterday.
I want you all to know that among progressives, it has become clear that you cannot claim to hold progressive values, yet back Israel's apartheid government. And we will continue to push back and not accept this idea that you are progressive except for Palestine any longer.
The CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, slammed the comments, saying that Israel does not have an apartheid government and said that she should not be imposing a, quote, litmus test in a tweet, saying, quote, Tlaib tells American Jews that they need to pass an anti-Zionist litmus test to participate in progressive space. Some of Tlaib's Jewish colleagues in Congress agreed. Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz called her comments, quote, outrageous and, quote, nothing short of anti-Semitic.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz is right. It is outrageous. It's outrageous that Rashida Tlaib is getting attacked. Tlaib is merely stating that Israel is an apartheid state and that people who claim to have progressive values cannot support an apartheid state. No matter how loose a definition of progressive we use, it certainly excludes supporting a racist apartheid system. What's outrageous is attacking Tlaib for pointing out that progressive except for Palestine is an intrinsically contradictory position. What's also outrageous is that the Anti-Defamation League's Jonathan Greenblatt would claim that Israel is not an apartheid government. What's outrageous is that Jake Tapper would accept Greenblatt's judgment as the truth and not propaganda that needed to be pushed back against. I understand that Greenblatt and perhaps Tapper feel like Israel is not an apartheid state, but unfortunately for them, apartheid isn't about your feelings. It's about facts.
Nice dig at fellow tribesman Ben Shapiro there.
Yeah.
So how'd that happen? So it's funny because a lot of times I think when people get fired off of shows, it's for something they actually say on the air in an unscripted, heat of the moment thing. You actually write this, you record it, they spike it and fire you. They don't just tell you, no, you can't do that on the show.
Yeah.
They actually fired you for
They
it.
were really upset that I pushed back against it. So I was trying to work out a way. Why don't you, because what happened was I was a weekly guest on Rising at the Hill. And then I did some fill-in paid work as a host. And when I wrote that monologue that I then went on to film with, shout out to Breakthrough News, it was my first radar because I wanted to, when I was hosting, I didn't want to do radars, I wanted to like master hosting to make sure I mastered that before I did the monologues, right? So I'd done that a bunch of times. I was like, okay, finally, I'm going to do my monologue. I wrote the monologue, I filmed it, recorded it, and then they come in, they're like, yeah, do you mind? We just want to like have you, we're going to do a pickup, I think they called it. It's like, so they wanted Robbie Suave to, is that how you say his name? Suave.
I thought it was Suave, but Suave is better.
Yeah, Suave, yeah.
Robbie Suave. Yeah, Robbie Suave is good.
Robbie Suave to do like a reaction, kind of pushing back. This is not me shit talking about him, but they kind of wanted him to push back on it a little bit. And that is, to be fair, like that's kind of the premise of that show, Rising. It's like someone on the right and someone on the left, except they think that Batya is on the left, which is interesting, whatever. So he did that. And then as I was walking out of the studio for that day of hosting, I got a call from a producer and she's like, I want you to hear this from me. They're not going to run it. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, the higher ups don't feel like they can run it. And I was kind of shocked and couldn't believe it because I had spoken about Israel a lot. So I was just surprised. And then they were going to try to like to air it, but then have someone respond to it. I was like, that's fine, whatever. I mean, in principle, of course, it was totally messed up because the truth is they do radars all the time. And as Ryan Grimm said, who wrote a piece about this, like no one ever pushes back on the monologues, on the radars.
Right. You just toss to somebody, they do their thing, and that's it.
And that's it. Yeah. But with this one, they didn't. And so I was speaking to them, and I was trying to get them to run it anyway and have they could have had on like an APAC person afterwards. I didn't really care. I thought it was a strong piece. It would speak for itself. People could push back on it and, and they, then I got an email from someone there after I spoke to a higher up who was like, we're not going to run it. And he was like, we have the right to spike pieces. And I was kind of like, okay, but I knew that wasn't true. Like I knew this wasn't like I was applying. This wasn't like I was submitting an op-ed for their consideration. Like I know that hosts get to say whatever they want, basically. And so then I got an email that was like, we're not going to need you tomorrow for your segment. And then they made it clear I was never welcomed back again, which was kind of shocking to me because I was a weekly guest. I was a guest every week on that show for over a year. But yeah, that's what happened.
And do you think it's a sign of things having changed? Or my theory at the time was that they couldn't have a Jewish woman talk that way about Israel because it just disrupted the narrative too much. Do you think it's that? Or do you think now Bree is able to talk pretty strongly on this issue week after week? I guess it could be both. It could be times having changed. It could be the stakes having been raised.
Right.
But I couldn't help but think at the time, and I think I said this at the time, that it struck me as anti-Semitic that you were fired for that. It felt like they were silencing a Jewish voice that was advocating for the people of Gaza and the West Bank.
Well, maybe that's interesting. I mean, maybe it's a little bit harder to write off what I'm saying as anti-Semitic, although clearly people are
that's what I mean. Yeah,
that self-loathing Jew. But I do think it's harder to write that off as anti-Semitic. And I also think that what happened is that once they lied and said that it was a stylistic decision, which I mean I don't think anyone believes that, except some of my haters do, because some of my haters are like, well, Bree is criticizing Israel, so they obviously just didn't like you. No, I think what happened is that after they said that it wasn't for ideological reasons, and Bree defended me and delivered a monologue defending me and said she didn't buy that reason. But after they did that, they couldn't then discipline Bree, because then it would be clear that it wasn't for ideological reasons.
Right.
It was actually for, then it would be clear that it had been for ideological, not stylistic reasons. I mean, also you had like Mark Lamont Hill got fired from CNN, and now they have Peter Beinart making the points that Mark Lamont Hill probably would have made. Although that's reversed, because actually it's someone who's not Jewish who they fired. And
well, Mark Lamont Hill said the words you're not allowed to say on TV.
Right,
he said from the river to the sea. That's why they shit canned him, because he actually went there.
Right. Yeah, I just the irony is that my video was pretty. I also think part of the reason they hated the video was because it was not. Obviously, I had a point of view, and my point of view was Israel's an apartheid state, and shut the fuck up criticizing Rashida Tlaib for calling it an apartheid state. But the video was so drew on international law, drew on UN resolutions, drew on quotes from probably the most damning part of that video, because I, of course, showed South Africans saying that it's apartheid, but probably the most damning part are my quoting Israelis, including Israeli prime ministers and former prime ministers who said either it was an apartheid state or was going to become an apartheid state. So I think that is especially scary when you're just literally like quoting people. You're not saying you should call Israel an apartheid state because it's racist. You're just saying, here's what the international law says. Here's what the legal definition of apartheid state is. Here's what the foreign minister of South Africa just said at the UNGA meeting. And here's what, Ehud Barak said.
Well, if you notice this week, they're really, and I'm not trying to minimize it or dismiss it, but it seems like they are really trying to push a focus on sexual assault in order to justify what they're doing. Like, it seems like they're really trying to change the conversation right now.
Yeah, this is a really awkward, uncomfortable conversation because no one wants to come off as a rape denier.
Right.
The truth is that I don't care what Hamas did on December 7th. You could tell me that they did. I'm not going to say anything because people are going to clip this. And the truth is, I don't care what Israel's response.
I understand what you're saying now.
Yeah, let her.
Nothing you could tell me that was done on December 7th would justify genocide.
7th.
Sorry, October 7th. Thank you. Nothing you can tell me about October 7th will justify what's happening now. And if we want to look at what was done on October 7th, that's fine. But right now, I'm an American. My government does not support Hamas, does not legitimize Hamas, does not fund Hamas, does not arm Hamas. So what is the actionable intelligence here, right? The actionable intelligence that I think we need to be talking about is what is being done to the people of Gaza, because that's my government enabling that. So if you want, I will say that it's terrible that there was violence on October 7th. But why are we talking about that? It is December. It was probably a Freudian slip when I said December, because we are in December. And that's how ridiculous it is. We're in December. And right now, Israel is pumping sewage water into Gaza.
The response is collective punishment either way.
Yeah, the response is collective punishment. These people, there are some good faith people out there. Here's what's problematic and scary about atrocity propaganda is it is easy to seem callous or uncaring. I'm not uncaring about what happened on October 7th. I think that there were atrocities that happened on October 7th. There are also atrocities that are happening every day since October 7th with my government's support. And what people have to recognize is that when people in December are talking about what happened on October 7th, it's not an innocent thing. There's an ulterior motive. And that's because they want to present Hamas as an unreasonable terrorist organization with whom peace cannot be made. And they want to present the Palestinians as savages and violent beasts who rape, murder, and pillage. And they are bringing this up because they don't want the world's opinion to turn on Israel, because everyone who's not paid off or a rabid genocidal Zionist realizes that what Israel is doing is ethnic cleansing. They have a plan to thin out the population of Gaza. That's according to an Israeli newspaper founded by Sheldon Adelson. This is not a left-wing rag. This is an Israeli newspaper founded by Sheldon Adelson. They're talking about this, that they're supposed to thin out the population of Gaza. I don't hear anyone up in arms about this revelation that Josh Paul, who used to be at the State Department, who resigned, he made the other day about how they brought forward the claim that which they found was credible by a 13-year-old Palestinian child who was a prisoner, who said he'd been raped by an Israeli forces interrogator. And Israel's response to that was to then shut down the charity that made that claim on behalf of that child. I don't see these people up in arms about that. I don't see them up in arms about the women and children being blown up as we speak. So those are crocodile tears. Like, if it turns out that there were rapes on October 7th, let's condemn them. Let's investigate them. But you can't make a mockery of international law the way Israel does and the way their Zionist spokespeople do, and then expect me to think that you have any concern with humanity, human rights, women's rights, children's rights. Just own this. You are an ideologue and you want to justify ethnic cleansing. And then I'd respect you.
Well, that's the thing. It's not like whatever happened on October 7th, their goal right now in these last few days is to make us even angrier about it so that we are less angry about what Israel has done since.
Exactly.
Because they can't actually make a moral case for what they're doing. All they can do is get us angrier about October 7th to the point where we say, well, I guess any response is justified. And of course, not any response is justified, no matter what happened on October 7th.
That's what I meant when I say I don't care.
You have killed now 10,000 people by Israel's own admission. Right. Exactly.
I didn't mean I don't care. Like,
no,
who
I understand.
cares? I do care about it. I don't care to the extent that there's nothing you can tell me that happened on October 7th that will, as you were saying, wash the hands of what Israel is doing right now.
Right, because by their own admission, and this is Israel's numbers, and I don't trust Israel's numbers, but by Israel's own admission, they've killed about 5,000 Hamas members. That's what they say. Now, I don't think it's anywhere near that much, but that's what they say.
Right.
And over 15,000 have been killed. So by their own admission, 2/3 of the victims of their revenge have been people with nothing to do with October 7th at all. And there's nothing you could tell me about October 7th that's going to make that okay.
Yes. Right.
Period.
And the argument that, like, they're responsible. I mean, you had the president of Israel saying that they're responsible because they could have risen up. Now, choose a narrative. Either they're a terrorist organization, Hamas, that is terrorizing a population and they're victims of it, or they're not. You know what I mean? Like, you got to pick a side here. They're saying incoherent things. But the truth is that we saw this. I actually had Mouin Rabbani on last night on my show, and the clip from last night is about him, like, tearing Matt Miller to pieces, this State Department guy who actually thought he could get away with this, and he has gone away with it because people are turning this into the headline. He said that he thought the reason that Hamas was not releasing all the women and children was because they didn't want the women to share the atrocities that they had experienced. Now, Matt Lee, this reporter for the AP, is like, what do you mean? You say that it's a fact, that it seems, what is it? And he admits in real time that he doesn't know that. He has no evidence for that. But that doesn't matter because you have Ravi Barak, I can't remember his name, an Axios reporter who writes a headline saying something like Hamas not releasing women because they don't want them to share atrocities. Says State Department. Okay, that's in the headline, but no one cares who says it. All they read is the beginning part of the headline. Right. Then you have David, Iraq War salesman, cheerleader from tweeting out, Hamas won't release prisoners because of sexual violence. That's the headline. He literally writes, that's the headline. Right. And then you have Fox News picking up the headline, and Julia Yaffe is picking up the headline. So that is the headline. And it's literally manufacturing consent in real time. And we saw this, and Mouin Rabbani and I were talking about this last night. We saw this with Saddam Hussein. They said that he was removing kids from incubators. That was the atrocity propaganda that they had then. Right. And that shifted public opinion. And the sad thing and the infuriating thing and the unbelievable thing is that there actually is a real story, unlike the Saddam Hussein story. There's a real story involving kids dying and incubators. And that story is about what Israel did to the babies in hospitals who were left behind because they had to flee, and they couldn't flee because they were on incubators and they were left to die. And Israel said that they would bring them, and they didn't. And they found their rotting fucking corpses decomposing. And this is the army that says it's the most moral army in the universe, and it does everything it can to spare civilians. Anyone who says that or believes that after what we've seen is either totally brainwashed or they're just evil people.
Yep.
Well, they're trying to pick up the Me Too narrative, saying, well, it doesn't apply if you're Israeli. Well, okay, so this is why. Because you have a long history of lying about horrific crimes. Right. And also, as you touched on, these stories of rape, not denying them or saying they're not true, but it fits so neatly with the savage others that we need to crush to stop them from carrying off our women.
Right. We're enlightened. We would love to not have to do this. We would love to live in peace with our neighbors, but they're savages. It's not PC to say it, but they're savages. They rape, they attack, they're violent. They throw gay people off of rooftops. I love that argument that it's somehow you're an LGBTQ ally if you're bombing the shit out of the people of Gaza because Hamas doesn't have the record that we want them to have on LGBTQ stuff. You think that LGBTQ Gazans are happy that they're being bombed?
Well, that's the Western chauvinist argument. I mean, that goes back to Bill Maher and Sam Harris versus Ben Affleck. And, at the time, I took Bill Maher at his word that when he was criticizing the more extreme, socially conservative tenets of Islam, that he was only criticizing ideas and not people. That was the big thing. But turns out, no, you were absolutely criticizing the people because you glean from those ideas the fact that the West has carte blanche to do with those people what it wants because their values aren't as quote unquote enlightened as our values. It's a horrific anti-human argument, and we see the consequences of that thinking. Early on, I mean, that was the first thing out of that asshole's mouth was, "Oh, queers for Palestine is like blacks for the KKK." Eat shit. I mean, go fuck yourself. I mean, it's just so so hideous.
People don't want Palestinians to live. Is that what you want? Like, is that the argument? I mean, it makes no sense. Right. And it really is so disgusting because I don't know. Like, I've never cried on air. I think I cried once on air when I was just doing radio on WBAI, and I spoke to actually.
Oh wow, WBAI.
Speaking of Kinderland, actually. So some of the people, another family, the Mirapoles, the orphans of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, they sent their kids to Kinderland, and I interviewed Robert Mirapole because he was trying to pass some local law like pardoning Ethel Rosenberg. And I think I cried, but it was just over the radio. You couldn't really tell because I think I read part of the letter that she had written her sons from jail before she was killed.
Right.
But I've never cried on like YouTube, but I have this time because there was this tweet from a doctor and it shows this little boy and he is thanking people for treating him with chemotherapy. And he was treated, and that's such a miracle to be able to treat someone in Gaza because all the restrictions, right? And like you need permission to leave to get medical treatment. And this boy was adorable and writing like a card and said, "Thank you." And then he's blown to smithereens. Like he and his family are killed. And I remember posting something about that. And someone writes in the comments like, "Oh, right. So they say thank you. That's fake. That's not Arabic." Like it is, to be able to see that or see the video that everyone's seen by now of the grandfather kissing his granddaughter's eyes, like what kind of inhumanity do you have where you think that this is okay? Like, I also cried last night, but I don't think you could tell because I kept it together. But I had it on a guest, this guy, Ahmed Twage, who's great. He's an Iraqi English journalist and doctor. And he said like that he read a doctor say that the loneliest thing to do is like to wake up, is to be bedside a kid who wakes up and you have to tell them like none of their family's alive. And there's this term in Gaza that's unique to Gaza, WCNSF, wounded child, no surviving family. I mean, I don't get how people can see this stuff and not have empathy. I guess I do get why. When you have a foundation, when your identity is wrapped up in the idea that everything that Israel does is for you and for humanity and is an enlightened, liberal democracy, you'd have kind of an identity crisis. And I remember after college, I said, like, Israel's not settler colonialism. Come on, it's different because the Holocaust. Like, I thought it was like, it can't be that because the Holocaust.
So even with the communist camp, you absorbed that.
Yes. And actually, there's a little piece in my camp is very, it's changed because it was never Zionist, but it's become much more anti-Zionist. Like the kids who go there, the adults who go there, there's a little part. In fact, one of the things in commie camp is that we do something called the World Peace Olympics. So other summer camps do the color wars, where it's just like team red, team blue, whatever.
Yeah.
And we
I went to the YMYWH.
Yes, so they did that, right? The color wars,
yes,
right?
Yes, they did.
So we did the World Peace Olympics, and every year we have the Peace Olympics, and there's different themes, and based on that theme, you have different teams. So the team that I filmed, the year that I filmed, the theme was From Discussion to Action, Making the World a Better Place. And the teams were Center for Constitutional Rights, the Highlander Center, which is what trained like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, J. Fredge, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, and then Greenpeace. And there's a scene in commie camp where one of the camp elders is talking to the captain of J. Fredge, and she's like, these people were like, the view everyone's getting of Jews is that they're all about Israel and they're right wing. And these people, J. Fredge, were like, wait a minute, I'm Jewish and I don't think that way. And she's like, I don't agree with them on everything. How could I? There are too many positions that they have, but God bless them, the God who doesn't exist, which kind of captures my camp's opinion on religion. But it is, it's becoming, like one of my closest friends from camp is very active in Jewish Voice for Peace. But it is, I think people are realizing more and more that, Netanyahu in some ways was a blessing because, a total curse. But Tony Judt, the late historian, predicted in the London Review of Books or New York Review of Books, I can't remember, but he really predicted that Israel was going to collapse because liberal Jews would no longer be able to support Israel with Netanyahu in power. And he was wrong to some extent, but maybe he was right about how at least it would lose its moral. I think it forced people to see through the liberal veneer of Israel when you have someone so right wing in power. And what else broke people's minds? I think this should not be underestimated, is people with the Trump derangement syndrome seeing how close Trump and Bibi were.
That's really interesting. That's a really interesting part of this, because you've seen guys like Michael Rappaport now, the biggest Trump derangement syndrome idiot, coming out saying, I might have to vote for Pig Dick Trump. And like some of the Trump derangement syndrome people are actually exposing themselves for the fascists they are. And that might be snapping some of the other more benign Trump derangement syndrome sufferers out of it. Because, this is the most extreme example, but we're seeing on like policy after policy after policy, a lot of these liberals start admitting things about the border that Trump said, he wanted to do. And they're saying, well, we can't stray too far from that. Economic policy, right? And things like that. But this especially, the fact that Trump and Netanyahu loved each other until Netanyahu wouldn't go along with the election thing. Right. Well, and Netanyahu said Trump lost the election. That was the real thing.
Oh, that too, yeah. But I think what really broke Trump's heart was the Soleimani thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw him make this ridiculous speech the other day. He's like, he's very weak. You don't want to go.
He's a pussy. He's a pussy.
Yeah.
Wouldn't go. Turns out the guy's a total pussy. But the fact that they were so close and that Trump does represent that sort of unapologetic support for Israel, that could have played a big role, because Biden's numbers now with key demographics. We're going to do a segment in a little while about Muslim voters, Arabs now saying they're voting for Biden at 17%. And that's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable drop off. It was 59% last time. Young voters, same thing. Biden's underwater with young voters. This is the kind of thing that, and this is another reason why I feel extra responsible, not just as a Jew, but just as someone who's been, and you've been in this lane too, Katie, screaming about the need to communicate very, very strongly that, like, we're not going to vote for representatives with these policies, period, no matter what happens. And now these Muslims are organizing a boycott in swing states with the express written purpose of sabotaging Joe Biden. And that means, in effect, electing Donald Trump. And they're like, guess what? We don't give a shit. You're not going to scare us with that anymore. And good on them. That's what we
and they
needed
should be
for the
scared of
longest
this.
time.
They should be the idea that like that it's easier to corral a bunch of like undisciplined, rowdy, uppity, ignorant people, Muslims who don't know what's best for them. And how could they? Why don't you, if you care, if Trump is an existential threat, people who are talking shit about people saying that they won't for Trump, there's one person who you could affect. His name is Joe Biden. Why don't you focus your efforts on that one person instead of an amorphous group of people? There's one other person who has agency. It's always like Biden is a victim.
Right.
He's not powerful enough. Get him to fucking do the right thing then if you care about this. All the time that you're shitting on other people on Twitter, use that time to write Biden a letter. You know, Biden, we really like you. We think you're so much better than Trump, which is why you have to do this thing that they want you to do. You don't even have to care about Palestinians. If this is fascism, then what are you doing?
They're too weak. They don't want to pick a fight. They'll never pick a fight with anybody who they don't think they could beat. You know, they beat up on the deplorables because they're an easy target for them because they feel so superior to them. They won't pick a fight with anyone stronger.
The ignorant Muslims, the ignorant Arab Americans. You know, and speaking of polling, I saw that Jim Zogby tweeted something that I thought was so stunning, which is that from the river to the sea, I can't remember the stats, but it's significant. It's like most Palestinians or supporters of Palestine, when they say from the river to the sea, they mean a place where everyone can live with equal rights.
Well, that's what it means.
And when people from Likud say it, and it's in their charter, it doesn't mean equal rights.
Right.
They're the ones with the fucked up from the river to the sea ideology, and they're implementing it. The other one is aspirational and about equal rights. And all these people are absolutely lying about the people calling for genocide of Jews. No, from the river to the sea is not genocide. That's not genocide.
No, it means the exact opposite. From the river to the sea means that on this land, people indigenous to this land will live as equals. That's all it means. Now, Israel's not willing to grant them that, which is why they say it means genocide, because that's a non-starter for Israel.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Well, you can really see it. You used this map in your monologue. Now it's very commonly seen. At that time, nobody had really seen this, of the encroachment into Palestinian land across the decades. It is very clear that this, if anyone has had an eliminationist policy, it has been Israel, but they've been doing it slowly, taking that land away.
There's this line, I don't know where it's from, but I keep seeing on Twitter, every Zionist accusation is a confession.
You said something in that I'm curious about, because I'm really trying to inform myself about this. You know, they always throw back at you, and I've learned enough to refute this. How can we be apartheid? We have Arab citizens, and they don't tell you the fine print that they're people who managed to cling to their land through the Nakba, but they don't allow Palestinians to get citizenship. But you said something I haven't really delved into it deeply enough. You said that they're Israeli citizens, but they don't have nationality, or they don't have full rights. What does that mean?
It's different. They have different legal status. And in fact, a place that it's gotten worse because of the nationality law. I can't remember what it's called. That's not what it's called, but it's a new law that actually makes it so that you don't get the rights of the person you're marrying. So it's become even more explicit. But all these people are nationals and not citizens. Not all these people, but
so they don't have citizenship.
Right.
Interest. See, that I didn't even know.
Yeah.
All right. So final question. This is the only thing I'll ask about domestic politics. So we've all been just absolutely knocked around this season, right? I mean, there's no real Democratic primary. The third party campaigns are uninspiring at best, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So for you, where do you feel like you want to go, if anywhere? I feel like this is the first post-Sanders campaign for a lot of people who hung their political activism during election seasons on that, and it's led to a lot of confusion and a lot of fighting and a lot of just. So do you do you have an idea of where you want to go now or where you are? Or are you just kind of out there like the rest of us?
I kind of feel like I'm out there like I had Claudia de la Cruz on my show, who I like a lot.
Yeah.
My feeling is, I think after Bernie, I don't want to get too invested in, and I do think Bernie was unique, and I don't feel like I think Bernie was unique in many ways, but I don't want to get too invested in like a figure, because I think that's dangerous, honestly.
I agree.
I think that right now, I've had Marianne Williamson on my show. I've had Cornel West on my show. I've had Claudia de la Cruz on my show. I have to have Jill Stein on my show. So I need to do that. I think that just having, it's so pathetic. Like there's not going to be a primary.
Right.
Well, this is what
Florida,
I saw this coming for, this was part of why we were pretty frustrated at the beginning when these Democrats were declaring and there were people getting excited. I'm like, I'm not doing this a third time in a row where we get invested in a primary and then the primary's rigged and then we spend the summertime of 2024 arguing about who's going to vote green, who's not going to vote at all, who's going to fall in line, and you're a sellout if you fall. Like, I'm not doing this a third time in a row. So that's why I had a very strong reaction to people who were like trying to get us involved in one of these fucking campaigns. I know someone who's working for Dean Phillips right now, a very close friend of mine. It took a temp job because I won't say why.
He's worse than Biden.
I don't want to get her in trouble.
That's like the only person who's worse than Biden on Israel is Dean Phillips.
Yeah, no, awful.
Considers like boots on the ground there.
Well, RFK is worse than Netanyahu on it.
I thought Phillips wanted to condition aid. Maybe I'm mistaken
well, I know he was considering boots on the ground. But the thing that
they're canceling they canceled Florida and they're talking about kicking him off of 2 other ballots.
I don't think it was ridiculous to try to pressure. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So sometimes it's like a little 20/20 hindsight. I don't think it was ridiculous to try to get debates. I don't think that was ridiculous because a lot of people, because we spent a lot of time on Useful Idiots and on my show, like highlighting the way that they were blacking out Marianne Williamson and RFK. And it wasn't about what you think about them per se. It's that I think if Marianne Williamson and Bobby Kennedy, and I have a lot of problems with Bobby Kennedy, obviously, but if they were on a debate stage with Joe Biden, they probably wouldn't be asked these questions, but they could say, free Julian Assange. And you'd have 2 people out of 3 people saying free Julian Assange. And I think that there is performative value in that.
But I think the feeling from a lot of people was they went into court and said, we can pick the candidate in a back room smoking cigars if we want to. And we took them at their word. Okay, well, you told us to go fuck ourselves.
Yeah.
So we got you. We're gone. We're out. So at that point, a lot of people, by the time this election came up, were just done with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a non-starter to work with them. And look how it evolved. I mean, Simone Sanders goes on just mocking people who thought there would be debates.
Right.
And the other side of this, and I've given versions of this monologue before, so I won't give a long one now. The other side of this that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, the big problem with the Democratic Party is Democratic Party voters, Democratic primary voters. I mean, we're seeing that right now. 30% of Democratic primary voters want Biden to run again. But when you ask who they're voting for in the Democratic primary, 60 to 70% vote Biden. Like, you can't work with a party like that. You can't work with an electorate like that. You have 30% of Democrats want Biden to run again. So they're just totally fucking deranged, right? But then of the 65 to 70% who don't want him to run. Right, exactly. But then the bigger problem, in my view, is that of the 65 to 70% who don't want him to run again, half of those people are so fucking weak that they'll tell a pollster they're voting for him anyway in a primary.
Right.
It comes down to the same thing. Bernie got 30% of the vote. 30% of Democrats don't trust the mainstream media. 70% do. There's this 70-30 split in the Democratic Party that's just unbreakable. You can't get past there. 70% of the party's voters are just totally useless.
And then, of course, non-voters who are the people that we should be.
Yeah, but the non-voters don't want anything to do with the Democratic Party anymore. That's the problem. The non-voters see this. I mean, Chris Hedges talks about this. The non-voters, the working class voters who have been fucked by NAFTA, fucked by all this Democratic, double talk over the past, several decades, they can't align with someone who's a Democrat. That's what Shama Sawant and Hedges were talking to Bree about on a show a few years ago. Like, Hedges tells her, like, listen, if you approach a lot of working class people in this country and say, hey, I'm running inside the Democratic Party, don't worry, I'm going to change it. They're like, no, fuck this. No, I'm out. Like, don't even come to me. The party is completely toxic to the very people that we want to empower. And that's why I don't have an easy answer for what to do or who to vote for, but I have an easy answer to tell people what not to get sucked into, right? Because that's time and money down the drain that working people don't have. So anyway, that's how I felt about that. But we're going to do some segments. You're welcome to hang if you want. I know we kept you well past an hour, so it's up to you if you want to take the rest of the night off. Or
she wants to get to her martini maker.
No, right, I think I drank. I didn't had on a full enough stomach. I need to get to my have some more food. Yeah. No, but this is really fun. Thanks for having me on.
It was a great pleasure.
Thank you very much, Katie.
We'll have to figure out the next show what to do about electoral politics, because that's still.
That would be great. I would love to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Well, look, we really, really do appreciate you coming on, and we really appreciate the work that you've been doing, especially around this issue. Like, you speaking out has been hugely important, and we give you major props for that. And so, thanks. It was great to meet you.
Thanks. You guys
Thank you very much, Katie. Great.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Katie Halper, everybody. Round of applause for our guest of the evening. What we got going on in here? 1,588 of you lovely people watching the show. We got 437 over in Rumble. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And if you want us to do more shows like this, hit that patreon.com/do dissidents. Jake, if you are there, you can hit that scroll for me, please, sir, unless you took a restroom break. There you are. There's Jake. Patreon.com/do dissidents. You can help support this program, help us do what we do here. We had a few of you guys sign up since the last show, but we are closing in on 500 paid members. That's what we need in order to make our 4th weekly stream happen. So go over to patreon.com/do dissidents and sign up. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com and sign up as a paid member there. Perks are the same across all platforms. You get your name up in lights. You get call-in access to our post-show Sunday night Q&As. And you also get 2 patron exclusive streams per month. We're going to be scheduling the first December supporter stream very, very shortly, so stay tuned for that. We'll have a date for that on Friday. You can also go to dodissidents.locals.com. If you're watching on Rumble right now, the join button is right under the screen, and that takes you to our locals where you could sign up for as little as $5 a month to get these perks. And that really, really helps us safeguard the show against censorship. It helps us sort of keep track of where we are and what projects we can do, what shows we can add. It's tremendously helpful. Our patrons, our Substackers, our locals members are the backbone of the show. We say it every time, and we mean it every time. So please, if you can do that, it is much, much appreciated. Thank you guys all very much for being here. We have some segments that we're going to do. Not a lot, but we do have some segments. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But let's go to some super chats here. Hobbs45. Thanks for the $11. Do hate speech laws apply to just straight up player hating? Good question. A good question. You have to ask our Irish brothers. They're passing a lot of hate speech laws over in Europe now. So
they are going to ask. Did we announce Friday?
No, we'll announce that in just a second. But we are going to ask a very special guest.
I don't want to step on the bet.
Yeah, don't want to step on that one. But yes, maybe we will be talking about that on Friday. I may as well break this now. Friday morning, this Friday, 9 a.m., we'll be welcoming our third blockbuster guest of the week. Glenn Greenwald will be joining us for part of the show on Friday morning. And so we're very much looking forward to talking to Glenn. Glenn is a hero of mine, has been for a long time. And so it's a great pleasure and an honor to welcome him to our StreamYard studio here. So that'll be a lot of fun.
What you probably didn't know is he's a badminton aficionado. So that's what we're going to be covering.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to be talking about badminton.
Yeah. But yes, we are going to talk about those hate speech laws among some other fun topics. Not fun. That's a fun topic, but we do have one fun topic with Glenn that I want to talk about, which is the Trump town hall with Sean Hannity, because there was some real gold in that one. I love that one. Nick Riviera, Dr. Nick Riviera, please ask Katie why no word regarding Tara Reid. I don't know what you mean by no word. I mean, she broke the Tara Reid story, basically, right?
Story, man. What are you talking about?
I mean, I don't know.
That's like, look, man, we got some people, and actually, strangely enough, I'm going to be covering this topic on Friday for the first time in a long time. You guess some people get mad that I haven't dealt with like trans issues in a while. I mean, what do you want me to do, man? Like, nobody in this space has covered that more than I have. What is it supposed to be every show, especially in the middle of a genocide?
Who's
like,
mentioned that?
Like,
who's giving you a hard time? You don't have to say their names, but so you get what messages? People saying you haven't done it in a while?
Well, yeah, they want, because for some people that's their issue. And
yeah,
look, I take it seriously enough that I get it. I feel terrible for these children who are going to face consequences later for a fucking social hysteria they got caught in, just like the satanic panic. So I understand why that would be your main thing, but we're a general news show. Like, we're not a.
There's children now who are caught up in buildings that fell on them. That's another thing.
Exactly. And there are people who are frankly better qualified than us, like Buck Angel or Blair White, who are actually trans people themselves doing a lot of work commenting on that. That having been said, if there's breaking news that's not what I've already done, I'll cover it. So this week they had a hearing about women's sports in Congress because the Biden administration is talking about changing the Title IX rules, and Riley Gaines was there, and Summer Lee, who I've never really gotten much of a look at. What a deranged fucking psycho she is. And AOC, who enough said about her. So we'll cover that on Friday.
Eric Cousseau, thank you for the $5. Anyone catch the turtle in the hair on Jimmy Dore show? Hinkle was making them so catty. Yo, yeah, that was crazy. I messaged Jimmy about that. That segment was killer. That segment was really killer. I encourage everyone to watch that. You could probably watch the raw video too, but Jimmy had Jackson Hinkle on to sort of do a recap of that segment of Hinkle versus those two British guys on Israel-Palestine, and man, he let them have it. So that was well done. For sure. Eric Cousseau, did the rabbi bite your wee-wee? Did he? You're talking about at the... Well, that's not at a bar mitzvah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a bris. I mean, I'm pretty sure they did. I'm just bringing this a little closer so I had a comment. I think mine was just done at the hospital. Like, I don't think I had a bris. I think it was just done at the hospital.
You talking about the circumcision?
Well, because back in those days, they circumcised everybody.
Yeah.
Like, you just got it when you were born.
Yep. Yeah, no, my circumcision went well. There were no complications. It caused a little confusion because I was born 7 pounds 9 ounces, and after the circumcision, I was down to 6 pounds 4 ounces, and so that caused a little bit of bookkeeping confusion at the hospital. But other than that, that was the only thing. James Vanderzanden, is Katie post-duopoly now? Dem exit. Sounded like it there. I hope so.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I wanted to get into it a little bit, and yeah, we have her on again. We'll spend more time on that. Obviously, we felt this was more important.
Yes, indeed. Half Dahlia, thanks for the $5. Do you guys feel that the new legislation, anti-Zionism equals anti-Semitism, even reaches to a point of removing Judaism from the equation? That's certainly one way to put it. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. And it's horrible that despite a lot of people in Congress, and certainly those in the Senate as well, it's just unbelievable that no one is able to stand up and make the very points that Katie just made, that we've been making. Like, this is seriously why. I mean, I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. This is seriously a big part of why we feel such a responsibility to speak out as forcefully as we do, because no one is going to do it but us, it seems.
Well, and I mean, for me, I think I was more exposed to this than you were, but having grown up with this fucking crazy brainwashing narrative, I want to free people from it. Like, I saw it was bullshit, but I think that's only because I grew up with Italians, so I had an outsider's perspective on it.
Right.
Whereas if I always had something to measure it against, to say this really, this doesn't make any sense. But a lot of Jewish kids don't have that perspective, and they wind up thinking that if they don't support Israel, they're betraying all the Jews across the long ages who died because they were Jewish. That's really what they brainwash you with, that you're breaking the chain of all these Jews who fought to be Jewish, right? It's crazy shit.
Thanks, Eric Huso. I worship Jabul. Still can't take a curve, though. Thank you, Eric. The brochure list, we got into this a little bit. We broached this, as much as we felt we should this evening. What is Katie's position on the Marianne Williamson campaign, pro or against? Yeah, it seems like that's pretty much over. It seems like people have pretty much given up.
And we felt like the times are really too serious. Like, what are we talking about here? Enough.
Yeah.
With that.
Justin Watson, thanks for $2. I don't know why equal rights in a shared state isn't obvious. Well, of course. And this is why a lot on the left were saying that a two-state solution really has not been viable for many, many years. You can't have a two-state solution where one state is intent on cannibalizing the other state. And after this, there's going to be two states. Like, you're going to have any kind of reconciliation after this horror. And this horror is just an exaggerated version of the horrors that have been going on for decades. That's why that has been seen as more and more unviable over the years. But yeah, obviously, you need a single state with equal rights. That's the only that is the only possible solution. And at this point, full reconciliation, just like full reconciliation for the crimes that we committed against African slaves, against the native peoples here. There's never going to be full reconciliation for that either.
Of course not.
Right.
Well, and that's something else that Katie included in her monologue. She had Nelson Mandela saying our freedom will never be complete until there's justice for the Palestinian people. She played a clip of Desmond Tutu talking about how when he went to visit, it was so much like apartheid South Africa had been, the checkpoints, the humiliation, the degradation. Just have we learned nothing? Have we learned nothing? That was such an embarrassment for us as a nation that we supported South Africa for as long as we did. Nobody ever, when they lionize Reagan, they never want to talk about the fact that he was the last holdout wanting to back South Africa. And we're doing it again to a much worse extent.
Right, indeed. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. I am refreshed. Yeah, I heard Rumble froze for a brief moment there, but Jake, our producer, was on it. So round of applause for Jake, by the way, for helping us out. Thank you, Bonzo Beans, Libertarian Socialist. Thanks for the $1. Disagree with Katie on 99% of electoral politics, but grateful for her stance on Palestinian freedom. Thank you very much for that. Guys, says Reg K. Ray, just finish your last podcast before tuning in here. Faux is pronounced pho. Yeah, I know that. With a short U sound, not faux. I know. I do that all the time. Vietnamese, easy to learn, lifetime to master. It's just subconscious. Like pho just seems like half a word, shall we say. It seems like it's missing a couple letters on it. So I know it, and I try to get it right. But in conversation, I just don't process it quickly enough. But thank you.
All right, so somebody, see, it's not the mic. You know what, man? I'm not even going to listen to this guy anymore. All right, so somebody asked to share about guilt child brainwashing. I've told this story before, but just briefly. So I liked Elvis as a kid, and the Hebrew school teacher told me, "Why don't you like Neil Sedaka? He sells Israeli savings bonds." That was the kind of old biddy that taught Hebrew school. It was very sad.
Yeah. Yep. You told me that one before. You should have Katie, says Sloppy Top 10, berate the audience until you get 1,000 likes. Yeah, we must be at over 666 likes, aren't we? I think we are. Jake, are we at 666 likes? Give us a confirmation on that, please. Yeah, 912.
We don't give away 912.
Yeah, so hit that. All righty, beautiful. We'll take a couple more super chats, then we'll do segments, and we will get to all the super chats before we end the program, so don't you all worry. Black Freud, thanks for the $5. Beyond religion, politics, and culture war only benefits the 1%. Everything else is a bloody pretense. Ultimately, it's all about the Benjamins. Yes, I agree with you there. Rosie, thanks for the $100. Let's get out our cowbell for Rosie.
Hang on, that's not dollars, though, is it? Is it dollars?
It is. It's dollars. She's also a member. That's what that symbol is. But yes, it's $100. Thank you, Rosie. We salute you with a cowbell. Okay, let's do a segment. We will get to all super chats and rumble rants. Do not worry, we have not forgotten about you. We're gonna do 3 tonight, looks like, and then since we are running at almost 2 hours already, Russell, we'll push that 4th one that wasn't on the thumbnail. We'll push that to Friday, since we're already up at the 2-hour mark. And we got 3 of these to knock out.
The thing about the thing with the guy with the thing, right?
The thing about the thing is kind of a long one, so I guess we'll have to push that to Friday. Yeah, but everything that we advertise, we will be doing. Indeed. So, folks, with all this talk about Israel-Palestine, you may have forgotten about the Ukraine war. But I made a short documentary film about the Ukraine war and the United States' involvement in the Ukraine
it's
war.
It's amazing how quickly you were able to put that together. You're a true genius.
I know. It was a lot because, we had Katie Halper on the show earlier in the stream. She made a documentary. I have a documentary that I'm editing about Jose Vega, which I was just on the phone with Jose today. We're talking about a release date because he's going to come back to the States very soon. So that'll be out very soon. But in the meantime, I thought I should release one. And so I put together this brief history of the Ukraine war. Here's my documentary film on the Ukraine war.
It will be. And the Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent.
So I will not vote for any aid until we secure our own border. I'm not helping Ukraine until we help ourselves.
There it is, folks.
That was just amazing.
Yeah, can I get a round of applause, please?
It was so moving.
Yeah. No fat. No fat on that. It really moved. I felt it really had rhythm. It didn't stall.
But it was touching. It was touching also. It was very emotional.
That's what we call a well-paced documentary film on the Ukraine war. For context, here is the full 14-second clip of Lindsey Graham talking to Dana Bash about his pivots against funding for Ukraine. Shocker, isn't it? Here he is.
Not vote for any aid until we secure our own border. Reform asylum, reform parole is possible to do. Democrats don't want to do it. All Republicans want to do it. I'm not helping Ukraine until we help ourselves.
It's the best money we've ever spent. All of a sudden, hey, I'm not helping Ukraine until we help ourselves. So this was a New York Times article from a couple days ago, and we do have an update that I'll share with you after we read through some of this. The White House warns Ukraine aid is running out, pressing Congress for more. The White House warned congressional leaders on Monday that the United States would run out of money to send weapons to Ukraine by year's end, severely jeopardizing Kyiv's ability to defend itself against Russia if lawmakers fail to approve emergency military aid soon. The urgent warning from President Biden's top budget official, delivered in a blunt letter, was the administration's latest bid to pressure the Republicans resisting another infusion of aid to Ukraine to drop their opposition. It came at a critical time in the war as Ukraine struggles to push back Russian troops in a counteroffensive that has largely stalled. President Vladimir V. Putin has continued to send a steady stream of his forces into the conflict, willing to endure high casualties amid signs of flagging resolve from Kyiv's Western allies. It's almost like this is a war of what? A war of attrition?
Huh. Hey, who does a war of attrition favor again? I forget.
The country with the most people. The country with a frozen tundra of a climate. The country whose people are used to suffering. A country whose history is defined by perseverance through suffering. Yeah, that's who's likely to win the war of attrition. That's where the smart money is. We said that 2 years ago, and they called us Putin puppets. Meanwhile, now 500,000 corpses later, not quite 500,000. That's the total of dead and injured, but a few 100,000 corpses later. People are starting to see it our way. When are they going to listen to us the first time? When? We are out of money and nearly out of time. Shalonda D. Young, the director of the White House Office of Management and Budget.
If only Zelensky had read this book.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that.
Napoleon learned this to his everlasting grief. So did Hitler, actually.
We are out of money and nearly out of time, says Shalonda Young, the director of White House Office of Management and Budget, wrote in the letter, which was sent to House and Senate leaders in both parties. Cutting off the flow of U.S. weapons and equipment will kneecap Ukraine on the battlefield, not only putting at risk the gains Ukraine has made, but increasing the likelihood of Russian military victories, she continued, adding, this isn't a next year problem. The time to help a democratic Ukraine fight against Russian aggression is right now. On Capitol Hill, Republican backing for Ukraine's war effort has dwindled substantially in recent months. The party's leaders have said they will consider additional aid only in exchange for one of their top policy priorities, major changes to border policy to severely limit the number of migrants entering the United States. And on Monday, the White House plea fell on deaf ears in the House, where Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, said Democrats have not done enough to earn the support of his members to send more to Ukraine. And this broke shortly before we went on the air. Republicans block Ukraine aid bill over border objections. So what has happened here, folks, is it seems like the Republican Party has basically ended the war in Ukraine. And they didn't do it because they wanted to.
Peaceniks.
Yeah, right. They didn't do it because, as Russell just sarcastically said, they are peaceniks. Lord knows Lindsey Graham has never seen a war that he didn't want to fund and or fight. Not himself. He wants to send his voters' kids to go fight. But he's never been anti-war, ever. He's never been against war. He was one of Zelensky's staunchest allies and most loyal mouthpieces on Capitol Hill. But the Republican voters clearly laid down the line and said, we are not for this. And not only are we not for this, but we are making this a key priority come primary season, come when you call us asking for money. And they were able to bring so much of that party to heel in a way that I didn't think they'd be able to do, right? The problem with the war machine is that it owns both parties, right? I mean, we said, well, yeah, I mean, you got more Republicans than Democrats are against the Ukraine war, but not enough of them are. They're still going to get every funding package through that they want. Then you saw that little force the vote effort, that little old force the vote effort from Matt Gaetz and a handful of hardliners in the GOP caucus. And that they started out as very annoying, very pesky, very disloyal, right? We saw all the hit pieces written about them in the press, how they're sowing all this chaos and how, you know, they're not going to get anything done. They don't know how to get anything done. Well, it turns out they seem to have gotten a lot done. They seem to have ended the Russia-Ukraine war because they're not going to be able to get more funding through for the war now. Now there's chirping about, Biden said into a microphone today that if Russia attacks a NATO ally, we'll put U.S. troops. Yeah, U.S. troops are not fighting in Ukraine. Yeah. There's not going to be nobody's going to go fight Joe Biden's war in Ukraine. All right. This seems to be winding down, and it seems to be the Republican base having cut their leaders into drawing a line in the sand. And because the Democrats are not willing to play ball on that, it seems like the funding has dried up, at least for now. I don't see how they get out of this.
No,
I mean, when you've lost Lindsey Graham, that's pretty much the ball game. That's like 2 Corinthians. That's it. That's the whole ball game. That's everything.
That's
The cat was named Vagina.
Yeah.
That's when you've lost Lindsey Graham, you've lost the ball game. But I said that back during the Kevin McCarthy debacle, that hey, if they were going to go so far as to oust a speaker on the suspicion that he was going to betray them on Ukraine funding, then this is never passing. This is never passing if they would push it to that level to get rid of a speaker. So that's it. That's the end of it. And, you tweeted out Jen Psaki complaining that Trump said he's going to come after MSNBC. Yeah. And you said, don't threaten us with a good time. Yeah. And that's how a lot of this stuff plays, because you have radical, deranged religious fanatic, which we have to start calling these people what they are. Chuck Schumer, religious fanatic Chuck Schumer, who claims that genocide has been justified by God and the enemy not believing in the Torah.
Exactly.
So religious fanatic Chuck Schumer is going to frame this as this is so horrible what the Republicans are doing, and the media is going to parrot that take. Look at this dysfunction, cutting off funding to the Ukraine. And the majority of the American people are going to say, don't threaten us with a good time. Right. Do you really think there's some kind of like base out there beyond you're just absolutely most moronic, lobotomized suburban shit libs who they're with you thick and thin. It doesn't matter what you do. As long as Rachel Maddow tells them it's the right course, they'll believe it. But other than that, like, actual people, who do you think does not think it's a good idea to cut off funding to Ukraine? Like, where do you think this groundswell of support is going to come from? In a country
even if you
where
were rooting for even if you thought it was a great idea to fund the Ukrainian war effort, which of course we didn't because we knew as soon as the war started that the right thing to do was to make a peace deal, which would have fallen pretty much in line with the terms that Russia laid out, which was not the siege of Ukraine, not the capture of Ukraine by Russia. It was they wanted a path to the sea, so they wanted independence for the separatist regions. They wanted the Crimea, and they wanted a neutral Ukraine. And it sounds from reporting, we did a story on this last week, it sounds like Russia probably would have settled for 2 out of those 3. They probably would have taken Crimea and neutral Ukraine because they were really, NATO was the main sticking point there. Right? I mean, we don't know. We can't say that for sure, but that's the way it sounded like to me. Instead, you had this. And even if you were on board for this, the Ukrainians had their chance over the summer. They launched their big offensive, which moved the front lines not much at all. And past that point, any rational person says, okay, we cannot be pouring billions more dollars into this. And any humane person realizes we cannot be spilling more blood over this. This is psychotic, suicidal, and insane. And it's getting people murdered.
Well, yeah, I don't know how many people saw Jimmy played this. He did a segment where, they're doing like a USO thing and some Ukrainian woman is gamely singing to entertain these troops, these newly recruited troops who are going to go to the front line. These old men, they're in their 40s and their 50s. And you can see none of them are paying attention. They're on their phones. They're not buying it at all. This is how it always is with a war. When they first break out, everyone thinks it's the greatest idea ever. And then a couple years on, they realize it was the worst mistake they ever made.
Exactly. All right, let's take some more super chats here. Anthony, why does Katie support sellout squad politicians? Does she? I mean, she defended Rashida Tlaib as we did against these charges of anti-Semitism and the like, to the extent that she thinks we should back them for re-election when they're primary. That's something I would like to talk about with her in the future because we've obviously had disagreements about that. Obviously, we didn't want to throw down over Marianne, especially after talking about the things that we've talked about. It just kind of seemed like small potatoes compared to that. But when we have her on again, I have no problem mixing it up. I mean, if there's a debate to be had over that, then I'd be game for that.
Yeah, I don't know if there is. At this point, there's no reason to litigate shit from fucking 6 months ago. It's a different moment. No,
I'm talking about AIPAC coming for the squad now.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, we were going to get into that stuff, and it just seems so trivial. We're sitting here talking about horrors and genocide, and then we're going to get into freaking Marianne Williams. Come on.
No, and what I said to her at the end, I really meant. Like, I really do admire the stance that she's taken and how forcefully she has spoken about this. Absolutely. That's why a lot of you guys in the audience wanted her to come on. You guys gave us the idea to invite her on. It was you guys in the audience who said we should have Katie on because of the work that she's done on this issue. Yeah, and certainly glad we did.
Yeah, she was a great guest. She's, much more knowledgeable on this subject than we are. We're playing catch up. there's been a cause for her for a long time. So yeah, no, that was great of her to come on. She gave us more time than we were planning. And yeah, welcome back anytime.
Indeed. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Sparky gave us a few here in a row. With near 100% U.S. congressional support and Elon's full-throated fellatio. I'm surprised YouTube allows the fellatio. I guess that's a technical term. I guess they wouldn't allow blowjob.
It is a technical term. Yes, and hang on. Before we get off that, yeah, she was a great sport. I'm just going to say, yeah, so, I reached out to her, and she got back to us, I don't know, it was like a month. We found like her site and contacted her on a contact.
Yeah, we just contacted through the contact form.
And so she said only if she could be drinking a martini, which I thought showed a great sense of humor. We had a little back and forth about that a few months ago. And so we did the martini bit, little in joke for those of you who got it at the beginning. And she was really a great sport.
I'm very pleasantly surprised by how good this martini tastes. I guess the olive brine and you don't need the vermouth. I didn't know about that. I'm not a martini guy. This is probably only the second or third one I've ever had in my life. But, you suffer for art. But turns out I didn't have to suffer that much. It was not bad.
Yeah, I don't know who wrote that in, but that's true. If you look at old Prohibition-era cocktail recipes, that's why they have a lot of sugary stuff and fruit juices, because the liquor was so bad. You had to cover the taste of it.
That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. With 100% near 100% U.S. congressional support and Elon's full-throated fellatio, Bibi feels empowered enough to continue, even if the Biden administration tells him to cool it. Well, this is here. Let me read all of these because you sent us 3 in a row, and then I'll answer. Pardon me. Hello, Katie. Love you. See, we got a fan here, and thanks. Yeah. Oh, wow. Sparky gave us a ton of these in a row. Well, thank you for all these, Sparky. But now, here, let me just take this one, because I've said this before. I think I said this on the Jimmy show last time we were on. The fact that Israel is our proxy in the Middle East, at first glance, you say, well, that makes them very dependent on us, which is true. But there's the other side to that, which is it makes us very dependent on them. Right? Like they feel they can boss us around because you put us here for a reason. If we're not here anymore, then you have no strong man in the region to, look out for your interests in the region. And so that gives them a lot of power in these negotiations. And you're correct. That creates a huge problem.
You know what might be a good idea? To get along with 99% of the people in the region instead of pissing off 99% of the region by supporting 1% of the region.
And Jews and Muslims got along very well before Zionism.
Right. Yes.
Yep. Sparky gave us a lot of these. Most Israeli civilians, if not also military, killed on October 7th were killed by the Israeli Defense Force and Israel Police. Hamas has no Hellfire missiles, but the Israeli Defense Force does. Well, it seems like, yes, that there is evidence to back that. It certainly does. And once again, YouTube, we are not denying any atrocities. Okay? There you go. You got to say that. There's a whole list of shit you got to say.
Safe and effective.
Yeah, exactly. Safe and effective. Make Israel Syria again. In those Ottoman Empire days, Jews and Arabs got... Yeah, see, that's what I just said, Sparky. Thanks, Sparky.
Exactly.
Appreciate that. All right, let's go to some Rumble rants here. Got that one already. Yeah. CFCU, why do we concede the language to a self-interested, essentially non-religious movement? Semites include Palestinians, probably more than Euro-Germanic Israelis. Zionism isn't Judaism. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I said this on the last show, now we refer to Semites more as, it's more about being descendant of one of the Semitic language-speaking people than like an actual like racial line. But I do take your point.
Although I saw something with Noam Chomsky where he said, if you want to get into who are probably descended from the Jews that lived there in biblical times, probably more of the Muslim Palestinians are actually descended from that based on studies, but we won't get into that.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, a lot of Israelis, they're from Long Island.
Right.
A lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, just say it. It's a settler state.
I told you, man.
That one guy, we covered him on the Patreon show because we don't want to say too much about, he's easy to make fun of. So we don't want to, get another harassment warning, whatever the fuck. But yeah, he's from Brooklyn. I mean, he just moved in. No, he was from Long Island, actually. Not Brooklyn.
Yeah, you see a lot of these Israeli ads, like they'll put very beautiful like honeypot women in to get your sympathy, and you look at them and it's like, man, you're a Polish girl with a tan.
Right, you're probably
Don't
right.
tell me you're
European.
Middle Eastern.
Right.
You don't look Middle Eastern. You look very tan, but you're very blonde and blue-eyed for all that.
Exactly. Sparky, thanks again. Wow, Sparky, is this your first time here, Sparky? Forgive me if I forgot you, but I don't remember a Sparky. The world won't soon forget about the evil played on Gaza by Israel. Israel will be lucky if in 75 years the Canadian Parliament gives an IDF force veteran a standing ovation. Yes, good one. And you're right. They're not going to get away with this. They're not. I mean, they are going to be a pariah state in due time. We've said that. Let's go here. Again, Sparky, thanks for the other $10. Man, Sparky's really hitting us up. Sparky's the MVP of this stream. The Holocaust may have won Israel UN approval, but rather than a Jewish homeland, it was really just a British neo-colonial strategy. Like with India, Pakistan, it was deadly right out of the gate. Well, this is the other thing, and I meant to bring this up when we were talking about Zionism as a concept with Katie, is like, I thought we created the UN after World War II to stop another Holocaust from happening. Right? I thought that was the purpose of the UN, was the idea that the League of Nations had failed, and so we needed this new international body that was going to be more robust. And the first two items in their charter, what do they call them? I think they call them pledges of the UN Charter. The first two are no more war and protection of fundamental human rights. So isn't that what that was for? Like, why did we need a state on top of that? I never bought that. Because as I said with Katie, Jews are nomads. We're nomads. And so wherever we settled, there were going to be people there, unless we go to Antarctica, which we're not built for that, right? So, like, that's the problem. That's the problem.
Yes, that's the point. Yeah. I used to drive a horse and carriage, and I worked with all these Turkish guys. And one of them was in the military. He was in the Turkish military, and he had been active in the Middle East, doing joint operations with the U.S., and he was the first person, actually, who really exposed me to the idea, because he would tell me about operations that would go on that don't make any sense, that aren't really according to what they claim the objectives are. And he told me from the experience, he realized that what they want is chaos, that there actually is no interest in having peace or resolution, that the West has set up all these conflicts to keep everybody divided. And at that time, that was, I was a very traditional neoliberal shit-lib kind of guy. At this point, that seems very self-evident to me, that a lot of Western foreign policy is a matter of divide and conquer and keep everybody fighting so that they can never unite against us.
Right. David Santucci, the Likud party, says from the Nile to the Euphrates, not just from the river to the sea. That's what the blue lines on the Israeli flag represents. Well, that's interesting. I did not know that. From the Nile to the Euphrates, that's what those blue lines on the flag. That's interesting. Thank you for that. Okay, let's do another segment, shall we? We will get to all of our super chats and Rumble rants. I know we're a little behind on them because we had the interview, so please bear with us, but we will get to all of them. Let's go to...
shouldn't Sparky get a cowbell? Didn't he give us 50?
That's true, actually. Sparky does deserve a cowbell. Good point. Beautiful. Good looking out. All right, folks, let's go to this story. This has been out for a few days, but we've been covering the development of this for a while. We learned a few weeks ago that Arab voters had been abandoning Joe Biden in droves. And we reported on top of that rumblings of a plan to actually actively boycott the Democratic ticket in 2024. Not just, well, we're not enthused, we don't care, we'll stay home. No, a proactive plan to tank the Joe Biden campaign, organized by Muslim voters. In this case, swing state Muslim leaders launched campaign to abandon Biden in 2024. Muslim leaders from several swing states on Saturday descended on Dearborn, Michigan to launch a national campaign against the re-election of President Joe Biden, a response to his handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict. Organizers from Michigan, Minnesota, Arizona, Wisconsin, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, and Pennsylvania are calling the campaign #AbandonBiden, vowing to ensure that Biden is a one-term president. Let me repeat that. Vowing to ensure that Biden is a one-term president. These leaders have run separate pressure campaigns in their respective states, members of the coalition said, but they felt now was the time to coordinate their response ahead of the 2024 election. We're looking to find ways to build a mechanism of coordination between all the swing states so that we're constantly working together to ensure that Muslim Americans will come out in all of these states and that Mr. Biden will lose each and every one of them, said Hassan Abdel Salam, a professor at the University of Minnesota and a member of the Abandon Biden National Coalition during a press conference Saturday. Right behind me, what Mr. Biden should see, is 111 electoral votes, and he won last time with a margin of 74. So that's a beautiful story, and that story is what I want you all to link to whenever you get called by one of these shit libs, uncaring about well, you say you're not voting for Biden. That's easy for you to say as a white man, right? That's white privilege, not voting for Biden. You're going to be insulated from the consequences of a new Trump presidency. Well, these Muslim voters who are organizing are under no illusions about who the likely Republican nominee is going to be. And they do, in that article, go on to say that they are not interested in voting for Donald Trump. They will either vote for a third-party candidate or they will not vote at all. But the point is they are actively organizing around a boycott of the Democratic ticket with the express written intention of sabotaging the Joe Biden campaign, which does mean, yes, it means helping Trump get reelected. Yes, they're willing to do that. Yes, stare that reality in the face and live with it and own it. Liberals, own it, Democrats, because you did it. And you've had plenty of chances to fix it, and you're not interested. And so here you have not an enthusiasm drain, not apathy setting in. No, you actually have now a coordinated effort in swing states to throw the election away from Biden, which will, yes, have the effect of helping Donald Trump. Yes, this is what I've been telling people over and over and over again. You have to embrace that. When people accuse you of emboldening Trump by abandoning the Democrats, you have to look them in the eye and say, yes, that's right. And that is a price I am willing to pay, period.
Jane, you ignorant slut.
You throw that into, that's what I usually say. You ignorant slut.
Yeah, right, exactly.
When they tell me that.
Wait, something happened here.
What happened? What? I'm here, right? What? What are we talking about?
My internet, something's happening on my end. Can everybody hear us?
I mean, everything seems fine to me.
Is that top ticker going?
You mean the counter?
The time, yeah.
Yeah, that's going.
It is?
It is. Yeah. Oh, shit. Hang on. Am I the only one on here now? All right. So people in the chat, you can see and hear me, right? But Keaton's gone. Is that what's happening? Am I on? Right? I'm on and Keaton's not. Or am I a ghost? Are we in an alternate dimension? Okay, so I'm here. Keaton's not. All right, so something happened with his internet. I'm assuming that he's going to come back. Yeah, I banned Keaton until he learns to straighten out and fly right. All right, here he comes.
All right,
we sent Keaton to the woodshed. Now
Am
you
I back?
behave yourself for the rest of the show. Yeah, you're back.
All right. Oh, what the
You're
fuck
back.
that was about?
All right, now you've been reprimanded. You get one warning. That was your warning.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell
enough
that was
of your
about.
shit tonight. All right, so you have come back from the land of wind and ghosts.
Yeah.
What omens did you see?
Yeah. All right, we'll go back into it. All right, so I gave you the standard shit. Yeah, we're gonna tank Biden, deal with it. Fuck you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, fuck.
And we're back.
What? Okay, so all right, so back to the subject at hand. Now that all the excitement's over, yeah. Well, it's harder and harder for them to use the, oh, you white men. You can say that because they're not only losing Muslims, they're losing everybody. The Latino vote is around 50-50 now, right? On Biden.
Yeah.
And then African American, what? Trump has like 25%.
Right.
Based on current vote, which is fucking unheard of for a Republican. So that's a harder and harder argument to make. I think you're seeing basically the phenomena that occurred in 2016 spread out to a broader section of the population. Fuck it. Just to say, Matt Taibbi said it when we had him on the other night. We're just going to vote for him to see the look on your face when he wins.
Exactly.
That was a lot of his appeal in 2016. And I think more people are willing to vote for him just for that reason now, because they feel like, well, fuck it. What are we getting from Biden anyway?
Right.
At least Trump's funny. I mean, maybe he'll be marginally better. The country was marginally better.
Well, at a certain point, you just have to say, as a matter of principle, we will not support a candidate that has enabled this genocide to happen in broad daylight. It's just
Trump
that at the end of the day.
Trump is the same on Israel, though. That's the thing. Like yes, sure, burn him, but Trump doesn't have a better position on Israel.
No, but their thinking is that you have to hold people accountable who ostensibly at least can be held accountable to you, right? The idea is the Democrats want our votes more than the Republicans, so by denying them, we're making a bigger statement, right? And by actively organizing against them. Yeah.
You just have to remember Trump's not going to change course on that.
No, and they're under no illusions about that. That's why they say they're not voting for Trump. Like they actually, make a point to say that we're not organizing a Trump vote. We are organizing a boycott of the Democratic ticket.
All right, so they're just not going to vote the top line, or they're going to fill in Dave Chappelle, maybe. If
they're talking more about not voting the top line. That's kind of the idea, is just leaving that top line blank. I'm sure some of them will find a third party candidate that they like, although there aren't many. Obviously, RFK is not going to get their vote either. But you might have a few Stein votes if Cornell's on any of those ballots. I doubt he'll be on any swing state ballots, but if he is, maybe he'll get a few. But there's an active campaign to boycott Joe Biden, as there should be.
Yes.
Do you have the starred column, Russell, in the chat? You see the live chat where it says comments and then there's starred?
Yeah.
You have to read those because my starred column is not showing up.
Oh, cool. I get to do super chats? All right.
Yep, you're quarterback in super chats.
All right, cool. All right. So, ironically, it was people from the Ukraine and Russia who in 1907 moved to southern Syria in the Ottoman Empire to the area which would soon become Palestine, who planted the seeds of Zionism there. I did not know that history. Thank you, Sparky.
Thank you, Sparky.
Always looking forward to your show. They're getting better and better. Thank you both very much. We're doing the next show in Nipple Tassel, so make sure you catch that one. That's going to be our peak.
Yeah.
Peak of our
Thank you,
art.
Yusib.
Great show, gentlemen, but why am I not on the Patreon list? That's above my pay grade. You got to ask.
Oh, you know what? There. Are you a new patron, or send us your name, because I did forget to send Jake the new patrons today. I meant to do that and I didn't. I'm sorry. I apologize. If you're not on there, I apologize. You will be on next time.
He's got twins. Give him a break.
Are you starting at the bottom? You should start at the top so we take them in order.
I did start at the top.
Okay, good. All right, cool.
Free Palestine from Nella? What's Nella?
Nela. I don't know.
I don't know what Nella is.
Thank you, the church.
Is that like a kind of wafer?
I came back. My starred column came back, but I'm still missing a bunch. So go ahead.
Yeah. Well, as always, I love you guys, and thanks for having Katie on. Thank you, Putz the Mouse.
Thank you, Putz the Mouse.
Thank you.
This is good practice for Russell's going to be front man in the Jimmy Dore show.
I am, but somebody else does this, right?
I think Misha is going to do this.
Steph is going to be, I guess Misha will do it, right?
Yeah.
Was Katie drinking a martini a low-key troll? Well, that was a high-key reconciliation.
It was a bit. It was a bit. See,
it was
we
a
did
bit.
It.
We were working
we coordinated
a bit.
It. Yeah.
We were working a bit, and she was a great sport. Fantastic interview. Katie's great. We think so, too. Thank you. Katie 7, right? Yeah, Katie 7. Did you two ever, deep inside, believe in the two-state solution? This is like an Isaac Hayes song.
Yeah.
Did you ever believe deep inside in the two-state solution? If yes, then why? Soccer Papa 499. Yes, sure. Back in my Clintonite days, sure, everybody did, right? And it looked like Bill was going to bring home the bacon, right? He's up there using his whole Bubba charm and laughing it up with Yasser Arafat and who was it at the time? Ehud Barak? Am I wrong about that?
Well, I know
who was it Rabin at that time? Who was the prime minister? It was towards the end of the Clinton
I'm pretty sure it was
presidency.
Rabin because Rabin was killed during the Clinton administration, wasn't he? Wasn't Rabin killed in the 90s?
Well, I think so. Towards the end, there was this great optimism that Bill Clinton was going to solve the Middle East, that there was going to be this two-state solution, the Palestinian Authority was going to take over, and it was going to happen. So, yeah. I mean, back then I believed in it. I would say that the notion that Israel is essentially an apartheid state probably did not, to my embarrassment, it probably didn't start to dawn on me until about 10 years ago, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I, am a younger man than Russell, so I wasn't following this in the 90s, but I expressed a sort of superficial support for a two-state solution before I knew what the hell I was talking about. Like, that's my confession. Like, back when you have a very vague understanding of what this is, it seems fair enough, but then the more you learn, obviously, the more that becomes, a belief you can no longer subscribe to. Russell, before you take some more, I'm going to take a few Rumble rants here because those I have. CFCU, thanks for the $3. Exactly, Katie. No bigger Zionist than evangelicals for the Jesus bait reasons. Yes, indeed.
Exactly. It's like they're putting us in a big spring.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come on, Jesus.
All right. As a Catholic, okay, so Warren Westell, sorry Jews, white Ashkenazis are not Semites, posted proof on locals. All right, well, I'll read that, Warren Westell, but like I said, well, first of all, I'm a Semite on my Maltese side anyway, so I got my base.
So Caton's a Semite.
Yeah, I'm a Semite either way. CFCU, thanks for the $5. If, as a Catholic Jew, I'm supposed to support the genocide of Palestinians, I'm also supposed to support child. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's something that she mentioned. I censored that because you did, but I know what you were saying.
Yeah. We got you.
CFCU, thanks for the $3. Zionism is an imperialist Trojan horse filled with power-hungry oligarchs of all stripes to smash actual democratic embers throughout the world. Well put, CFCU. Thank you very much. First, you concede the Semitic identity, then the rest falls. Zionism is Judaism. Palestinians are inherently terrorists, but Israelis are soldiers and innocents. Yeah. CNN put this headline up. They got roasted for this. They said, man in military fatigues shoots mentally disabled Palestinian boy. What do you mean, man in military fatigues? You mean an Israeli soldier? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Man in military fatigues. Man dressed like Israeli soldier shoots Palestinian boy.
Man cosplaying as man with biblical authority to occupy other man's land shoots him in the head.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, we're gonna take the rest of these super chats. Russell, how many starred super chats are in your column there?
Uno, due, tre,
well, it should say at the top.
Oh, 23.
Oh wow, holy shit, we have a lot. All right, let's take 5 more, and then we're gonna do our last segment, and then we'll take all the rest.
All right. Make Ukraine Russia again. Is this Vladimir? Vladimir, I told you not to call us here.
Certainly has enough rubles to be Vladimir.
Yeah.
Sparky's making it rain tonight.
Don't even leave patch called Ukraine, lest it remain a NATO and carpetbagger playground and money laundry, plus becomes a BlackRock property. Yeah, that's Vladimir, all right. I know how he talks. Two-state solution sounds like separate but equal. I mean, the way they've been doing it, and so far as they've been doing it, it sure does.
Yep.
We're for the right to return. I mean, I think I can say we are for the right to return. Once you acknowledge the right to return, well, now you've got justice for all from the river to the sea, and everybody has citizenship, democracy, and their property rights restored.
Right.
If you still have a place called Israel, it is no longer a Jewish state. It is a state for all of the people living in that region.
Yes, and it was John Kerry who said during his time as Obama's Secretary of State that Israel can either be a Jewish state or a democratic state. It cannot be both. Those are his words. Hardly a radical John Kerry. You got a couple more there?
Yeah. Sparky with the $10. Sparky, man. Come on, man. Are you a stripper? Are you like working the pole, and as the money comes in, you give us another 10? Putin was on the fence about invading Ukraine. Kamala's speech at the Munich Security Conference pushed him over. Are you telling me that Kamala Harris started World War III?
Well, she did. She wanted Ukraine to join NATO. I think that was in November of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that was it.
You know, that's one of those great ironies of history that such a grossly incompetent and unfit person would have such tremendous consequences.
Right.
The U.S. recently sent her to the Middle East in the hopes she could spur a wider way. Probably right. All right, are we doing one more?
Do one more, yeah.
All right, so Mawis, $5. Thank you, Mawis. Katie was great. She's fooled by Fraud Williamson, but her heart is in the right place for sure. Yeah, you know, the sense that I get is whatever her feelings about Williamson personally, she's kind of over that project politically, which was another reason. There was no reason to get into that.
All right, let's take that one off if you can. Here I go. I got that one. We got some more Rumble rants that we will get to. Hold on one second. Okay, Reg Cray. All right, Reggie Cray. All right, there we go. I can't listen to Keaton butcher my username again, so I'm putting it up another Ducat. It's Reg Cray 76. All right, Reggie Cray and his brother Ronnie Cray were British gangsters from the 60s. Don't judge. All right, now I know. Reg Cray. I'm going to call you Reggie Cray.
What was the really good movie that was done about that relatively recently, like a few years ago? There was like a not very good movie about that in like the 80s, I think, but there was a much better one kind of recently.
I'm not sure.
All right.
Okay, cool. All right, we got some more super chats to take. We will get to everything, but right now we are going to play one more segment here. Let me just make sure I have this because, hang on. This is the one. All right, sorry. I had to upload the exhibit again because I got kicked out. So, folks, here is a really fascinating piece of video. This is on CNN. This is Jake Tapper interviewing Israeli official Mark Regev. Now, Mark Regev, you may remember him from another clip that we featured recently. One of the last interviews that Mehdi Hassan did as host of his show was with Mark Regev, where he grilled him. Tapper doesn't grill him here, but you could really see Tapper just get broken by what this guy is saying and sort of realizing in real time what he has been defending all along. There's about 4 minutes here. We'll break it up a little bit, but we're going to let this play for the most part straight through. Russell and I are both theater guys. We've directed, between us, I'm sure thousands of actors in our day. you could pay attention to human behavior. You could pay attention to the way people act when they're not talking. You could really tell Jake Tapper is kind of broken up by this conversation. So let's give it a look.
Innocent people. There are a lot of innocent people being killed by bombs that Israel is raining down upon Gaza. And even if, as I know, the IDF believes that that Israel has killed 5,000 members of Hamas, that's thousands of innocent people, including women and children, babies that Israel has killed. And even if it's an accident, even if it's collateral damage, it's a lot of innocent lives that have been killed by Israel.
So you are correct that we don't want to see a single innocent civilian caught up in the crossfire between the IDF and the Hamas terrorists. And we're making a maximum effort. I mean, we've been leafleting and urging people to leave areas of combat from day one. And the truth is most Gazans did vote with their feet and did exit areas of combat, and wisely so. We don't want to see a single Gazan civilian caught up in the crossfire. But we're working against a brutal enemy who deliberately wants to use Gaza's civilians as a human shield to protect its war machine. And it makes our job just so much more difficult. But I think, and I've seen the numbers, and I can't share with you yet, but when this is over, we can have a serious discussion when the fog of war is behind us. But I am convinced, though every single civilian death, and especially children, is a tragedy, and we don't want to see it, in comparative numbers, if you compare Israel to perfection, of course we'll fall short. But if you compare Israel to other Western armies who've been fighting terrorists in built-up urban areas, I think Israel will not come out badly in the comparison. On the contrary, I think it will be seen that the IDF really has done everything that is humanly possible to try to safeguard innocent civilians.
It's very hard to believe that, especially on a day when one of our producers lost 9 members of his family who were not members of Hamas, not members of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, not members of any group, just 9 people just trying to live their lives.
First of all, I extend my sorrow to him and my sympathies. But if I saw your report correctly, and please correct me if I say something wrong, that happened in northern Gaza, in Gaza City, where a month ago we already asked all the civilians to leave. And most of them did. If there was like 1,200,000 people there was only a couple of tens of thousands left. And one has to ask, yes, they had ample opportunity to leave. I don't know what happened. I don't have the specific circumstances. I know there's deadly combat going on now in the north, still between these IDF and Hamas terrorists, yes? And we don't want to see anyone caught up in the crossfire, but why didn't they heed the advice and leave the area?
You can't blame them. There's now
I don't
fighting,
blame them.
But you can't. There's fighting in the south now. I've been asking this since October 7th. Where are these people supposed to go?
Okay, look, like I said, I can tell when someone's faking it, and when they mean it. If Jake Tapper were faking it here, he'd be talking a lot more. When you're trying to feign emotion or feign outrage, you feel like you have to compensate for the fact that you're faking it by talking a lot, right? And, getting very passionate, very gesticulate. He means what he's saying. You could see the look in his face, just the sunken look on his face. And so it's progress of a kind. I'm not going to beat up on the guy. But at the same time, I'm sorry, and I will admit I do not watch CNN. But I've seen a lot of clips of Jake Tapper, and I haven't seen any of him saying, where are they supposed to go? This seems to be the first I'm hearing of it. And so I appreciate the fact that he's finally pushing back on this. But are another 15,000 people going to have to be massacred before he tells this guy to go fuck himself, before he calls this guy out for the mass murdering thug that he is? Like, how much more do you want here before you actually put this guy in his place the way Jackson Hinkle put those 2 British guys in his place? Like, what is it going to take for you to actually step up, right? And like I said, I could tell he knows now. You could see in his eyes as he watches this. He's like, he has that, oh, what have I done look on his face.
Well, and this is why this military action is ultimately going to be so devastating for Israel, because just like for Ukraine, when you've lost Lindsey Graham, when you've lost Jake Tapper, That guy's a company man. When you have sent out your best spokesperson, which that's a whole thing that can be examined in and of itself, that they send out fucking Dracula's henchman here, and as if he's going to well represent the country. He's so clearly this bloodless freak who will say anything to defend anything. And Tapper just can't do it. Well, if a consummate professional, bloodless company man like Tapper cannot listen to this, how do you think other people feel? How do you think this reads? Do you think anybody's watching this and coming away from it sympathetic to the Israeli cause?
Yeah. Good question. There's a little more.
So at the beginning, it was easier because the fighting was concentrated in the north, and we just asked people to move south, and that was relatively simple. Yes, I'm not saying totally simple, but relatively simple.
I mean, how fucking dare you say that? It's relatively simple? It's relatively simple for 1.2 million people with no food, no fuel, no electricity,
with children.
No
half
water.
The population are children.
With children who can't take their possessions with them south because they have to walk south with their hands in the air so they're not shot from the fucking sky. It's simple, relatively simple, to evacuate 1.2 million people, which, by the way, is an illegitimate claim in and of itself. That's what the UN human rights expert who we featured on the show a few weeks back said. Said the very order for 1.2 million people to flee their homes because we're looking for 25,000 terrorists, that is an illegitimate and unlawful order right there, right off the bat.
Right.
Well, that was a simple request. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Have you seen this map they made? This is fucking crazy, dude. All right, so it's like a map of postal zones. You ever see a map like that?
Right.
Like imagine a map of like Manhattan postal zones. And basically they're telling these poor people in southern Gaza, go to 10019 now.
Wow.
Go to 10003 now. That's what they're doing.
Wow. That's unbelievable. We'll have to cover that maybe Friday.
South of the river. But now we're being more specific because it is more complicated in the south. We've actually designated areas in the south which are safer areas.
That's what he's talking about.
Especially
Right.
there's a number of them.
Wow.
We've shared
Look at
the
Jake
maps
Tapper's face.
with the United States. It's been shared also with the UN and the other humanitarian organizations. Listen, we have to hit Hamas in Khan Yunis. They've got a strong military infrastructure.
There you go. Listen, we
They've
have
got
to hit them there. Okay, so we told people to flee to the south. Now they flee to the south. Listen, we have to bomb the south too.
Yep.
Check every day to make sure you're in the right numbered zone so that you don't get blown to pieces.
Right. And what about all the people? And they'll say it's Hamas, it's Hamas, it's Hamas, it's Hamas. Okay, so what about all these poor people who are being beaten, imprisoned, and murdered in the West Bank?
Right.
No Hamas there. So why are you doing that?
Yep.
It's too much. It's too much. I mean, I related to what Katie was saying. I've cried about this, and
of course,
I don't cry easy. You know, fucking, I grew up when men weren't supposed to do that. I mean, seriously though, yeah, man, I have seen footage.
It's horrible. Yeah, of course.
How do you not, man, when you see somebody screaming for their dead child? Like,
yeah, no, it's unthinkable.
It's a level of horror that is just so beyond anything we experience.
Yep, for sure.
A network of tunnels. If we want to destroy Hamas's military machine, and we have to act in the south as well. Senior Hamas commanders are there under the ground in Khan Yunis. We can't not go there. But in going there and to defeat Hamas, we're also going to make a major effort once again to try to safeguard civilian lives. And that's why we're urging people there now to move to the new areas that we've specified. And as the ground operation starts, I can assure you that the escape routes, the humanitarian corridors that will allow civilians to get out of harm's way will still be there.
Mark Rego, thank you so much.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's the reaction of a guy who's just been broken by that conversation. And all he can muster up in himself to say is, well, thank you so much, with that sort of feeling of despair in his voice. Again, look, it's progress of a kind, Mr. Tapper, but I tweeted this out at him because I ratioed him a few weeks ago when he was talking about how, could you imagine what it's like to feel unsafe on a college campus as a Jewish student. I said, you're going to interview a Palestinian baby and ask if what it's like to feel unsafe in their hospital, you know? So sorry I had to do that to you, Jake, but I would like to see, I mean, how many more people have to die before you actually get tough with these guys? Because that's what we need right now. We need people to actually get tough and start calling this out for everybody to see in the audience. I mean, he got it right there. He saw exactly what he has been a party to in a certain way right there. There's no question he felt that. I could tell.
Yeah, and this guy, Regev, who they keep trotting out to represent the Israeli position, he's just such a fucking disgusting excuse for a person, man. This was with Mehdi Hassan, right? Where Mehdi Hassan showed that one of their people had put up just demonstrably false information, claiming that footage showed Hamas crisis actors. And it turned out it was actually back behind the scenes footage from a fictional film.
Right.
That in no way was pretending to be a real thing. And Hassan pointed out it's still up. And this fucking piece of shit starts going into a whole speech about how the guy who put it up is a very valuable asset to Israel to distract from the subject. Yes, we will talk to him about this, but actually he's great. He's great. We're very lucky to have him. He speaks fluent Arabic, so he's able to represent the Israeli point of view to the Arab world. We're really lucky to have him. I mean, I don't know if this guy is, Mossad. He's gonna fucking stick an ice pick in this guy if he doesn't say that. But it was just so weird and out of tune to what the conversation was. But that's like, Israel is such an immoral project that you need somebody like this with no conscience who will say anything to be your spokesperson. But the problem with that is he reads that way.
Right. Of course. Warren Westell lives on. Dr. Shiva. Yeah, we got some Dr. Shiva. I actually saw a lawn sign for Dr. Shiva in my neighborhood today. Yeah, I actually saw a lawn sign for him. That was funny. My name was not in the credits. I know. I apologize. I already said that. I do apologize. I forgot to give Jake the list. So I will get
Warren
everybody
Westell,
on.
I like that.
For Friday.
Is that like Kal-El? Is that what that is?
Yeah, Warren Westell. You called in to our Q&A, but you didn't have the mic working, right? That was, but you did try calling in, so maybe you should call. Maybe you can call in on Sunday. Elvis was a Jew. His mother was an exotic dancer and taught him to pelvis thing. Thank you, Warren Westell.
Yeah, I don't think so. He was poor white trash through and through, that cat.
Russell, you want to hit up some more super chats? The one that I have is at 1021. That's the first one I have access to. So I think you got some more. How many are on your list there?
18.
Okay, good. So you can read
Max Blumenthal would be a great guest. Keaton and Russell, Dwayne Vogel. Yes, we do plan on having him on at some point. We kind of have a list going right now, but yes, he is somebody we definitely want to bring on.
For sure.
Sparky, $2. Thank you, man. First time here. Saw you on Jimmy Dore. Great work.
Well, thank you, Sparky. We appreciate all your generosity tonight.
Another one from Sparky. I think all 16 of these are Sparky now. I'm kidding. All right. So Sparky, $5. Fun fact, Ottoman Empire sent ships to rescue Jews from the Spanish Inquisition in 1492. Is that true? I'd be very interested to look that up. It's funny. I knew a guy from Spain who totally looked Jewish, acted Jewish, and his name was Jaime. But it's also a Spanish name. So
right. Yeah, Jaime is Spanish. Right.
But he sounded like a guy who was going to sell you a suit. Right. Hey, how you doing, guys? What's going on? Let's deal. I was like, dude, your people converted during the Inquisition. You're definitely descended from Jews. Sparky, $2. U.S. is the major agent of chaos in the world. You can say that again. We don't even do it with that nifty British accent either. No. The illustrative Carp and Company, $4.99. It's about fucking time. Voting for a third party is a moronic move, but voting for the same two parties that fuck you in the butt every time is not, I don't know, eyes angry face.
I think that's a sarcasm thing.
Thank
you,
not
illustrative
smart,
car.
I guess would basically be the.
All right, I got access to these again. I can run these down in just a second. But before we do, folks, it's a little game break here. I just want to get some of these plugs in again. Once again, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents to support the show. We are closing in on 500 paid members. I also want to take this opportunity while we have 1,234 yous in here. And Jake, what are we up over on Rumble? 440? All right, get a great crowd in here. So our friend Ellen Jimerson launched a Substack of her own, and she wrote a few pieces on there. And so I definitely want to plug Ellen's Substack. Ellen's a great friend of ours and a contributor to the show from time to time. So those of you who know Ellen, you love Ellen, go subscribe to her Substack, ellen.substack.com. I don't know if Ellen has paid membership set up or if she's doing it for free out of the kindness of her heart, but you can certainly check that out. And I'm really impressed that she got that domain, ellen.substack.com. You thought that might have been taken, but no, she got it.
You would think, yeah, Ellen, right.
Yeah, exactly. But go over to ellen.substack.com and sign up. She's already posted a few pieces up there. So definitely go and check that out. Reg Ray, I'm just kidding. I know. Reg K. Ray, thanks for $1. Republicans, the anti-war party. We're through the looking glass here, people. Yes,
damn right.
We are indeed. This Goy says B for $1.99. Thank you. Loves y'all. Thanks for the show. And Katie, thank you.
Thank you.
Black Freud, thanks for the $2. Not voting is an option and a powerful statement. Yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do at this point. Thank you, Black Freud.
Dave Chappelle.
Or Dave Chappelle. That's true. Egg64 666, Satan be praised. Thank you, Egg64. Appreciate that. Sparky again, man, look at Sparky go. Thanks for the $10. Putin derangement syndrome existed long before Trump derangement syndrome. Don't believe last 20 years of propaganda. Putin is actually a good and righteous man. Hey, Sparky, thank you for the donation. If this is your first time here, you've already given us about a year's worth of Patreon memberships worth of Super Chat. So you should join our Patreon. You get call-in access to the show so you can talk us through some of these. And you can also sit in on our supporter-exclusive live streams. SB, thanks for the $5. Have Jackson, Hinkle, and Haas on. Yeah, that would be a wild show. Regardless of any social differences, they begin fighting the Zionists since day one. Jackson, Israel's social media bane. He certainly is.
Guess what we would put on Rumble?
Yeah, right, that one. Yeah, exactly. But that would be fun. That would be definitely a fun one. Sparky, thanks for the $5. Putin's supposed evil deeds were actually carried out, faked by the Five Eyes, CIA, MI6, etc. Well, Putin, there was. Did you give us a super chat that said that? Oh no, that was this one. From Ernest Dowson, thanks for the $10. It's time to send all those Ukrainian lawn flags to Kiev. They need them to drape the coffins. Yeah, that's the tragedy of it, and that's the thing, that we said all along was that the actual pro-Ukrainian position, meaning the position that takes into heart the security of the Ukrainian people, the safety of the Ukrainian people, was to call for a peace deal from day one, on day one, which is what we did. Back before anybody knew who the hell we were. But that's the real horrible thing.
And when this all broke out, we got more into the history. We haven't really gotten into that lately. But, hey, whatever you think about Putin, if we did not want Russia to fall back into a kind of autocracy, as I don't think you can argue it has not, well, maybe we should not have responded to the end of the Cold War by sending in our financial services companies to rape their economy.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, like they got one look at what it was going to mean to be in bed with the West, that basically we were going to do to them what we do all over the world and just exploit their economy and take control of their resources and make them junior partners in their own country. Well, hey, not surprisingly, they fell back on their historical pattern of finding a strong man to run the country. Not to mention the fact, listen, the Russians are, they're tough people, man. And very quickly, some very serious and very dangerous mobs started to take over that country. It wasn't like you had some kind of functioning democracy. It started falling into just oligarchy and gangsterism. So Putin went in and he cleaned that up. And from what I know, the Russian people appreciate him for it. If we did not want that, we probably should have handled the end of the Cold War a little differently.
Yes. SB $2. Jay Hinkle actually got started on Haas's Discord. Interesting. Thank you. Paul Chu, thanks for the $5. Another cowbell for Sparky. Yeah, we do Sparky cowbell. Why not? Why not? Thank you, Paul. Dominic Morrow, thanks for the $4.99. Thank you guys very much for these generous donations. They are super helpful, so thank you all very much. If you're not careful, you may become part of the Sparky Industrial Complex. Yeah, we're going to be working for Big Sparky. Thank you, Dominic Morrow. Well, we'll be, Big Dom, too.
Dave hostile takeover.
Yeah, exactly. Legend was the 2015 movie about the great
that
twins.
Was really good. That was really good. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Both were played by Tom Hardy, and boy, he's quite the actor. What a crazy film. Oh, that's right. There was a movie where he played twins. I didn't know what that was, but there you go. Thank you, Dave Diller. I appreciate that. Spade, thanks for the $1.99. What happened to the Geneva Convention? Well, yeah, I mean, look, what happened to the United Nations? What happens to all of this? Like, apparently none of this means anything, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the message that's being sent right now. Sparky, Israel already lost Wolf Blitzer. Yeah, he was the first domino to fall. Tapper must be asking, are we the baddies? Yep, exactly. That's exactly what was going through his mind right there. Are we the baddies? All right, China Show wants Caleb Maupin instead of Haas and Hink. All right, noted.
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? CFCU, thanks for the $3. I heard there were a few Hamas fighters in Manhattan. Russell, get out, or who knows what might happen to your building. Yeah, well, they're going to start all that shit. Look, man, the most prescient video that we did in 2023 so far, I think, by far, was that Tucker monologue. Being like, yeah, nice little election season you got coming up here. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what the world has in store for you. All right. Warren Westell thinks Elvis is Jewish. I've heard rumors that he was Jewish, but I don't think there's truth to that, is there? I mean, I know that's a rumor. In Innocent Days, there was a Jew who had a channel said the same thing. Do your research. That's why Elvin was called the king of rock and roll. That's why it's called the king, like King David. I've heard there are internet like things out there that says that he was Jewish.
there are a lot of fucking things on the internet. Listen. All right.
I've been to Graceland. I learned about Elvis.
Yeah, I've been to Graceland too. You've been to Graceland?
Yeah.
You don't even go past Connecticut. How did you go to Graceland?
My friend when I was back doing my filmmaking in my early 20s did a documentary about me as a filmmaker, like showed me making movies, like did a little meta documentary thing. And it got into the Memphis Film Festival. And so we went down there for like 5 days. And it was a tiny little film festival, but it was really cool. Like, they really set the filmmakers up with great perks. Like, they got us, like, free meals at all the great barbecue joints down there. And one of the perks that they gave us was free tickets to Graceland. And so we got to go to Graceland. And it was actually really cool. I actually really liked Graceland.
All right. So, yeah, I know a lot about Elvis. And, this is the thing about the internet. Anyone with a connection to it can say anything. Elvis was almost certainly descended from the indentured servants, like most of the poor white trash are. He grew up in a shotgun shack. His father was an ex-con. Well,
thanks, Extra Bolo.
So I don't think there's any truth to that. But Elvis was Jewish.
Rumor has it. People are saying he's Jewish. Paul Chu, thanks for the $5. Genuine question. As an Aussie, why don't you think voting should be mandatory as it is here? It spreads votes to independent. I don't think it should be compulsory. No. I mean, I know that's not a great answer. But
there you get a fine. You get a fine if you don't vote. I actually think it's not a bad idea. because it's not like they put you in jail. I think that would probably be going a bit far. But yeah, I mean, given that we often say if more people who are non-voters voted, you'd have different results. So yeah, I do think it should be mandatory.
I mean, I think I wouldn't agree. I'm a staunch supporter of the right not to give a fuck. That's fundamental. KD7.
Well, you know, Ready Player One, I think, was onto something. You know, they predicted a future where, you know, people would just vote by, you know, pushing their video game button. I think we will have that in the future. Although Ready Player One believed that would just lead to electing reality stars and things like that.
Yeah, indeed.
They would just make Simon Cowell the president.
Right. KDK7, thanks for the $5. The 80s, the craze starred actual twins who were pop stars at the time. Never saw it, but Siskel and Ebert liked it.
It was all right. It wasn't nearly as good as Legend was.
All righty, folks. Yeah, Winnetou Livre says Elvis Presley was not Jewish, not even Jew-ish. Speaking of Jew-ish, George Santos expelled from Congress. That's a shame. I would love to interview George Santos. That would be a really fun interview.
Didn't he file a suit about insider trading or something?
Yeah, well, now he's going after some of the people who voted him out. I think that would be such an epic interview. I would love to interview George Santos. That would be really fun.
That would be cool. We should interview him in the restaurant that he got busted for exploiting.
We should just, yeah. I mean, it would just be this really fun thing. So you just thought, why don't I just run for Congress and just lie to everybody about everything, see how far it takes me? I mean, I kind of like George Santos for that reason. I think he's spunky. You know?
I mean, this is what sucks about this show. Like, we've blown our opportunity to do that. We've given away too much information about ourselves. We can't just reinvent ourselves now.
Right. We can't do like an Ollie G thing on them.
Yeah.
All righty, everybody. Well, that is our show. 3 hours. Big show, but a great show. Went along because you guys are very generous with those super chats and Rumble rants. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you guys. We want to thank our guest, Katie Halper, for joining us. We had a great time with Katie, and we will be back here on Friday morning. Glenn Greenwald joining us for some morning do. Glenn had to sit in on the morning shows because he's live weekday nights, and Sunday nights are like probably his only nights with his kids and stuff. So Friday it is, but Friday will be a great show. We'll have Glenn on for about an hour, and then we'll have more segments, just like we did today. So kind of same format going on Friday. In the meantime, folks, please hit us up, patreon.com/DoDissidents if you can. If you're hitting us up with super chats, if you're hitting us up with a bunch of super chats per show, save 1 or 2 super chats, put it in the Patreon pool. It really helps us out a tremendous amount. Once we get to 500 patrons, we are adding a 4th show per week. So really trying to make this full-time. And so your help is very, very much appreciated. Our patrons, our paid Substackers, our locals members, you guys are the backbone of the show. You can find us at rumble.com/DoDissidents to support us there as well. And if you go to Substack, even if you can't join as a paid member, join as a free member. That gives you access to our newsletter. We send you alerts whenever we're going to be going live, and when and where. And we're also posting articles again. We've posted, 3 articles in the past few weeks. Russell's got 2 that he's working on at the same time now, and I'll have another one out probably by mid-month also. So definitely join that Substack. If you can become a paid member, that helps us out a tremendous amount. If you can only become a free member, that's really great as well. So dodissidents.substack.com. Russell, that's all we got for this evening, is it not, my friend?
Hope you liked our show.
That's everything, folks. We will see you back here Friday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, with special guest Glenn Greenwald. Until then, be safe, be well. Thank you all so much for tonight.
Can you dig it?
Courage.
Please clap.